Chapter 3908. The Prodigies of the Divine Kingdom. The city lord's eyes trembled. What are you afraid of? Our sky cloud realm has prodigies like Longchen and Qin Feiyang. And our eastern continent is the place where Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Wing Wolf King rose. On the street below, a teenage boy yelled. When the city lord heard this, he felt humiliated. He wasn't even afraid of a teenager. As the city lord, he was actually scared to this extent. It was really embarrassing. Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden Wing Wolf King? The four Divine Kingdom youths looked at each other. Who was this person? Wasn't it said that the only prodigies of the sky cloud realm were Longchen, Longqin, Yinxiang, and Li Feng? That's right. Qin Feiyang and the others rose step by step in our eastern continent, and became the prodigies of the sky cloud realm today. With them here, we don't have to be afraid at all. The others also roared. Who are these Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Wing Wolf King? Are they strong? They are. One of the Divine Kingdom youths frowned. Of course they are strong. They are the prodigies of our sky cloud realm. They have left countless legends in the eastern continent. Even the older generation doesn't dare to compete with them. If you really have the ability, go find them. Don't be a tyrant here. The city lord also mustered up his courage, and stared at the four with a sneer. So powerful? How are they compared to Longchen and the others? The four were curious. I don't know. The city lord shook his head. You don't know? The four were stunned. The city lord indeed didn't know because Qin Feiyang and the others didn't show their strength in public after returning from the Sky Bell Divine Treasury. The only 2 times, Qin Feiyang played the role of Qin Xiaotian. Are you playing with us? If they are really powerful, then let them come here. We will wait for them. The 4 of them sneered, their expressions full of contempt. Their whereabouts are uncertain. Go and find them if you have the ability. When you find them, you will know how insignificant you are. The city lord retorted. You're courting death. One of the young men took a step forward and landed in front of the city lord in an instant. He slammed his palm towards the city lord's chest. Ah! Accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. The city lord's body shattered on the spot, and blood splattered everywhere. What Qin Feiyang? What Madman Mo? What Golden-Winged Wolf King? In front of the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom, they are nothing but ants. I'm the one who said that. If any of you are not convinced, then come at me. You can come at me together. That young man from the Divine Kingdom was extremely arrogant, and he glanced at the entire city. Too arrogant. There's simply no law. Beat him up. The young man's words immediately enraged the crowd. Within the city, everyone who had attained the ruler realm charged out, activated their laws, and charged towards the young man from the Divine Kingdom. There are so many of you, yet you don't even have a single supreme profundity. You really are no different from ants. The young man from the Divine Kingdom laughed with disdain, and then he instantly activated 6 supreme profundities. Amongst them were 2 supreme profundities and 4 ordinary supreme profundities. 6 supreme profundities. Such strength was even stronger than the other experts of the Devil Palaces. In just a few breaths of time, all those who charged forward were heavily injured, and they were smashed into the city in a sorry state. Accompanied by a series of rumbling sounds, the city was also in a mess. That's it. Huh. How laughable. Looks like besides Yinxiang, Li Feng, Longchen and Longqin, there are no other capable young people in the Skycloud dimension. The 4 of them roared with laughter, and then they turned around and left. Bastard! It's too early for all of you to be arrogant. The city lord's soul roared furiously. You still dare to act arrogantly? One of the young men from the Divine Kingdom raised his brows, and then a strand of the energy of the laws surged forward, and obliterated the city lord's soul on the spot. The other 3 young men had cold and indifferent expressions on their faces as well, and it was like they were crushing an ant. City lord, all of you bastards will die a horrible death. All of them howled with sorrow. They didn't feel any panic, only hatred remained. Looks like I have to slaughter the city to make all of you behave. The gazes of the 4 young men turned cold as they activated their various supreme profundities, and they actually grasped 6 supreme profundities. 6 supreme profundities were existences on the same level as the patriarchs of the 3 races. The gap between Ocean of Cloud City and the 3 races wasn't small at all. Even if Elder Hua, Chu Yun, the Devil Palace's master, and the Grand Elder were here, they wouldn't be able to fight the 4 of them without using sovereign armaments. Ocean of Cloud City was about to be annihilated, but a formidable aura suddenly surged over from afar. The 4 young men from the Divine Kingdom were stunned, and then they turned around to look at the sky above the mountains outside the city. You actually dared to cause trouble in my territory? Are all of you tired of living? Cruel laughter resounded. That voice. The spirits of the residents of the city were refreshed, and they raised their heads to look over. They saw a black-clothed young man walking step by step through the air towards them. Madman Emo. It really is him. Brother Emo, they're from the Divine Kingdom. They didn't just kill the city lord, they even intend to slaughter the entire city. Quickly kill them. The crowd instantly roared with excitement. He's Madman Emo. The 4 young men from the Divine Kingdom raised their brows. He's from the Divine Kingdom? I was wondering who would dare to act so arrogantly in Ocean of Cloud City. So it's trash from the Divine Kingdom. Madman chuckled as he utilized the ghost steps, and it only took a few blinks of the eye for him to arrive before them. Trash? They exchanged glances, and then they started laughing from extreme rage. They stared at Madman and said, I heard from them that you're very strong. I'm not really strong, but I can crush all of you. Madman bared his teeth. How arrogant. But there's a price to pay for being arrogant. Killing intent flashed in their eyes, and all sorts of profound meanings blasted towards Madman. But Madman didn't even dodge. He just stood there without moving, and all sorts of profound meanings instantly drowned him. You're just a so-so. You're so scared that you don't even dare to fight back. The 4 of them laughed in disdain. The eyelids of the people in the city couldn't help but twitch. He wouldn't be killed just like that, right? Is that so? I didn't fight back because you don't even have the qualifications to make me fight back. Madman's proud and arrogant voice resounded. The 4 of them were surprised. He actually didn't die after being blasted by their profound meanings? As expected of Madman Mo. Haha. He doesn't even have the qualifications to fight back. He's really domineering. The people in the city were stunned for a moment, and then they all started laughing. Swoosh. In the next moment, Madman took a step forward and entered everyone's line of sight once more. His body was actually intact. How is this possible? The 4 young men from the Divine Kingdom were stunned. Immediately after, they discovered that Madman's body was now filled with strands of lightning energy. It was this power of thunder that helped the Madman block the attacks of the various profound meanings. This is the prodigy of the Divine Kingdom? You've really disappointed me. Madman sized up the 4 of them and shook his head. The lightning energy surged out, and a lightning pool suddenly appeared in the sky. All sorts of divine lightning intertwined, forming rainbow-colored divine lightning that exuded a heavenly might that could destroy the world. This is the law of lightning's ultimate profound meaning. The 4 of them changed their expressions and turned to run. Die for me. Madman laughed. With a wave of his hand, rainbow-colored divine lightning poured down like a waterfall, instantly drowning the 4 of them. With a shrill scream, the 4 of them were destroyed on the spot. Amazing. This is the law of lightning's ultimate profound meaning. As expected of a prodigy from our eastern continent, everyone looked at this scene with excitement. Madman waved his hand, and the lightning dissipated. He lowered his head to look at the people in the city, and his eyes seemed to have a trace of vicissitudes. But soon, he returned to his cynical look and laughed. You guys are too useless. Just 4 pieces of trash beat you up like this. Just 4 pieces of trash? Everyone smiled bitterly. In your eyes, they are trash, but in our eyes, they are unattainable gods. We know you are strong, but can you not be so discouraging? Madman asked. How many people came from the Divine Kingdom this time? A lot. Not only our eastern continent, but according to the news from the Divine Palace, Sky Palace, and Rogue Cultivator Alliance, there are also many people from the Divine Kingdom on their side. I estimate that there are at least 800 if not 1,000 people coming this time. The guard commander stepped forward and said in a deep voice. Because the time was too short, they didn't have a specific number. So many? Madman was stunned. Yes. It's much more than before. The guard commander nodded and said. However, the people who came this time aren't as good as those from before. A group of people from the Divine Kingdom has already come? Madman was stunned. You don't know about this? The guard commander was suspicious. I don't know. I have been in the Nether King's hell, and have only just returned. Madman shook his head. Yes. I heard that you seem to have entered the evil moon back then. The guard commander patted his head and said, half a month ago, 10 geniuses from the Divine Kingdom came, and each of them had extraordinary strength. The guard commander briefly explained the situation of that battle. No way. Someone from the Divine Kingdom actually has 3,000 incarnations? Madman was dumbfounded. We saw it with our own eyes. In the end, it was Long Chen who appeared and killed him. The guard commander said in a deep voice. Long Chen? Madman frowned. The guard commander said. Long Chen's god's domain can restrain 3,000 incarnations. His strength is even more terrifying than Long Qin, Li Feng and Yun Xiang. Long Qin, Long Chen, the Divine Kingdom's 10 geniuses. Interesting. Madman chuckled. The guard commander was rather speechless when he heard this. After all, every single one of those 10 geniuses was an extremely terrifying enemy, and they could even slaughter an entire continent with ease. But Madman seemed completely indifferent. At this moment, a middle-aged man in the city below took out a transmission stone. A figure appeared. This figure was a young man in his 20s, and he wore the uniform of a disciple of the Demon Palace. Obviously, he was a disciple of the Demon Palace. Father, you must be careful in the city. The geniuses of the Divine Kingdom have arrived again. The young man looked at the middle-aged man and reminded him. The middle-aged man smiled. The Divine Kingdom's forces have appeared in the city. What? How's the city now? The young man was surprised. It's fine now. They intended to slaughter the city, but at the critical moment, Madman Mo attacked and killed them. The middle-aged man smiled. Madman Mo. The young man was shocked and roared. Where is Madman Mo now? What? The middle-aged man was puzzled. Dozens of Divine Kingdom's forces have arrived at the Demon Palace. The situation is dangerous now, the young man said in a low voice. What? The middle-aged man's expression changed, and he hurriedly raised his head to look at Madman in the sky and roared. Brother Mo, the Demon Palace is in trouble. Quickly go and help. Madman raised his brows. Did they think that the Eastern continent had no one? Old Meng. Chapter 3909. The guard commander was shocked as well, and he said anxiously, Brother Mo, quickly go and support them. Just 4 people from Ocean of Cloud City had almost been massacred, let alone dozens of people. The Demon Hall was definitely in a very bad situation. Don't worry, Demon Hall. Deal with the aftermath well. Madman waved his hand, and a spatial passageway appeared the Demon Hall. At this moment, the mountain before the entrance had been practically razed to the ground. Around 60 people stood in the air, and their clothes and hair fluttered in the wind. Their auras were terrifying, and their faces were filled with disdain. Elder Hua Chu Yun, the Demon Hall's hallmaster, and the 10 elders were in the lead. There were countless disciples behind them, and their faces were filled with rage. Moreover, there were a few dozen young men and women by Elder Hua's side. They were all core disciples of the Demon Hall, and they were the best amongst the core disciples. They were known as the geniuses of the Eastern continent, but all of them were missing limbs and covered in blood. They were in an extremely sorry state. There were even over a dozen corpses on the ground, and they had died rather miserably. These are the genius disciples of your Demon Hall. They can't even withstand a single attack from us. Are they worthy of being geniuses? I think they're even worse than idiots. One of the young men from the Divine Kingdom glanced at the group of young men and women, and then he chuckled as he looked at Elder Hua and the others. Hearing this, everyone in the Devil Palace was instantly enraged. Actually, you older generation people can step in as well. Even though Qin Shaotian and the master of the divine kingdom made an agreement, you don't have to abide by it, and we don't mind. However, even if you older generation people step in, you probably won't be able to turn the situation around. After all, even the weakest on our side is stronger than you older generation people. Let's just call you old trash from now on. Haha. That name? It's very suitable for you. A group of people laughed unscrupulously. Chu Yin clenched her fists tightly. Clang. Suddenly, she waved her hand, and a crimson sword appeared. The ruler's aura instantly enveloped the surroundings. Little Yin? No. Elder Hua's expression changed, and he hurriedly looked at Chu Yin and shouted. The demon hall's hall master hurriedly stopped him. At the same time, the young men from the divine kingdom were stunned, and then they started laughing. Ruler's weapon. How awe-inspiring. However, do you dare activate it? So long as you dare to activate the sovereign divine weapon? Does that mean breaking the agreement between Qin Shaotian and the master of the divine kingdom? When the army of the divine kingdom arrives, what kind of consequences will the Sky Cloud realm face? Can you imagine? I advise you to obediently put it away. This is the consequence. It's not something you can bear. All kinds of mocking words were incessant. This enraged everyone in the demon royal halls to the extreme. Then do you know what consequences you will have to bear? But suddenly, a bone-chilling voice rang out. Little lunatic. Elder Hua and the others were stunned. He was immediately overjoyed. The dozens of people from the divine kingdom couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. Who had the guts to provoke them? Could it be Long Chen? Yin Xiang? Li Feng? Above the demon palace, a space-time tunnel appeared. Lunatic took a step forward. Standing high up in the sky, he scanned the demonic palace. I'm back. Elder Hua stepped forward. Yes. Madman nodded. His gaze turned cold as he looked at the injured disciples. Then, he noticed the dead disciples of the demon royal halls. Killing intent surged in his eyes. He raised his head and looked at the dozens of people from the divine kingdom. Who gave you the courage to come to the demon royal halls and kill the innocent? Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to us like this? A woman from the divine kingdom stood out. She looked at Lunatic arrogantly. They had already seen the images of Yun Xiang and the others in the divine kingdom. So when they saw Lunatic walk out of the space-time tunnel, they immediately knew that it wasn't Yun Xiang and the others. If it wasn't Yun Xiang and the others, how dare he be so arrogant in front of them? Wasn't he courting death? Who do I think I am? Lunatic muttered. Everyone in the demon royal halls looked at the dozens of people from the divine kingdom with ridicule. You only know Yun Xiang and the others, but you don't know that the truly terrifying young people of the Sky Cloud realm haven't even made their moves yet. Who in the Sky Cloud realm didn't know of this little lunatic's ferocious name? Others couldn't wait to hide when they saw him, but these people actually took the initiative to approach him. They really admired their courage. If you don't have the strength of Yun Xiang and Li Feng, then kneel down and kowtow to apologize as soon as possible, so that we don't have to do it ourselves. Another young man from the divine kingdom spoke, looking at Lunatic with disdain. Yun Xiang, Li Feng. Lunatic laughed, laughing very happily, and walked toward the dozens of people step by step. You're courting death. The dozens of people from the divine kingdom surged with killing intent. Lunatic's eyes suddenly flashed with killing intent as he stared at the group and said, Yun Xiang, Li Feng, are they strong? Boom. The law of slaughter and the law of thunder rolled out. Two ultimate profound meanings appeared out of nowhere in an instant. As soon as the blood prison, the ultimate mystery of the law of slaughter, appeared, the world turned into a sea of blood. Lunatic walked on the sea of blood with 99 blood-colored swords behind him, emitting a sharp light that could destroy the world. Above his head, a pool of lightning shook the world, and 7-colored lightning emitted a monstrous might. With the two ultimate mysteries, he was like a demon god that had returned from hell. The demon palace disciples were stunned. He also grasped two ultimate mysteries. Although it was just two ordinary ultimate mysteries, it was many times stronger than them. At the same time, the pupils of the dozens of people from the divine kingdom suddenly constricted. They didn't expect such a terrifying person to be hidden in the demon palace. 2 ultimate mysteries. Such strength was enough to dominate an area. Don't keep talking to me about Yin Xiang and Li Feng. I never put them in my eyes. Lunatic's domineering aura was unparalleled. As his voice landed, the 99 blood-colored swords and the pool of lightning carried an apocalyptic might as they smashed toward the group. How dare you be so presumptuous with just 2 ultimate mysteries? The eyes of the woman from the divine kingdom who spoke earlier flashed with contempt, and the law of light surged forth. In the next instant, a full moon rose, illuminating the world. Within it, auspicious beasts soared and angels danced, presenting an auspicious country. This was the ultimate mystery of the law of light, the kingdom of light. At the same time that the woman activated her ultimate mystery, another man from the divine kingdom walked out. Waves of fire surged out, and the void above instantly turned into a sea of fire. Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying divine might, a flaming giant appeared, and the place instantly turned into a large furnace. The ultimate mystery of the law of fire. Elder Hua's eyes trembled. It turned out that the people from the divine kingdom hadn't displayed their true strength when they fought with the demon palace disciples. Boom! The 4 ultimate mysteries collided. A world-destroying aura surged out in all directions like a tide. The Crimson Sword saw that the situation wasn't good and immediately activated a barrier, enveloping the entire demon palace, Elder Hua, and all the disciples. If they weren't protected, the demon palace would be razed to the ground in minutes. Not to mention the demon palace disciples. Just the shockwaves from the battle were enough to kill them. High up in the sky, the frenzy was fighting 1 against 2, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. To him, this was nothing at all. The ultimate mysteries of the law of lightning and the law of slaughter were just one of his methods. Kill him. The eyes of the people from the divine kingdom were filled with murderous intent. The various law of light activated one after another, and all of them were ultimate mysteries. Every one of them had mastered 6 ultimate mysteries. What kind of scene was this? Elder Hua, Chu Yun, and the demon palace master couldn't help but shudder when they saw the true strength of these people, let alone the disciples below, because the strength of any one of these people was comparable to the patriarchs of the 3 major races. This was the strength of the younger generation of the divine kingdom? The Sky Cloud realm really couldn't compare, because in the Sky Cloud realm, other than Qin Feiyang's group, the other young people didn't even have a single ultimate mystery. This gap could be described as the difference between heaven and earth. Similarly, if the younger generation of the divine kingdom was so powerful, then how terrifying would the older generation of the divine kingdom be? It was unimaginable. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang trying his best to reach an agreement with the master of the divine kingdom, what kind of catastrophe would the Sky Cloud realm be facing now? Elder Hua, can the frenzy do it? The demon palace's second elder couldn't help but worry when he saw this scene, because he didn't know the frenzy's true strength. Seeing the people from the divine kingdom displaying such terrifying methods, he couldn't help but lose confidence in the frenzy. Don't worry. He can. Elder Hua's eyes were firm. When he fused with the law of light in the Black Tortoise realm, he already knew the frenzy's strength. Now this little guy had mastered the ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. It was merely the ultimate mysteries, no matter how many of them there were, it was meaningless. Even the people in front of him might not even be qualified for the frenzy to activate the ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. As expected, facing these dozens of divine kingdoms youths, the frenzy didn't have any intention of activating the ultimate mysteries of the strongest laws. Boom! A violent, ruthless, and bloodthirsty aura erupted from his body. In the next moment, the frenzy's thin and small body continued to grow. Finally, a 10,000-foot-tall giant appeared. His entire body was covered in blood-red hair. Like an ancient giant ape, his terrifying might shattered the void and the earth. At this moment, the frenzy seemed to have transformed into a completely different person. His eyes were filled with a terrifying savagery and madness. Even the barrier laid down by the red longsword was distorting, as if it would shatter at any moment. Elder Hua and the others didn't know, but if the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, and the Little Rabbit were here, they would be dumbfounded. This was because the frenzy's appearance and aura were exactly the same as the Blood Demon King's. This was a demon king that made people tremble in fear upon hearing his name. After so many years, I thought that the Divine Kingdom would have changed, but I didn't expect it to become even worse. You cold-blooded things should all be killed. The frenzy's voice was like a bell, and his tone had also changed. It was filled with the smell of blood. As his voice fell, his mountain-like fist punched out. The power of the blood demon swept through the sky, and a shocking scene immediately appeared. Chapter 39:10. The mad scientist's fist smashed the ultimates one after another. It was simply unstoppable. One had to know. This was the ultimates of the ultimates. Although it couldn't be compared to the ultimates of the ultimates, it was enough to destroy the world. But in the end, it was defeated by the mad scientist's fist. The strength and power of his physical body was too terrifying. He's a monster. The dozens of people from the Divine Kingdom were dumbfounded. It was the first time they had seen someone fight with the ultimates of the ultimates of the ultimates of the ultimates. Moreover, the ultimates of the ultimates were no match for his fist. In just an instant, they were all shattered. At this moment in their eyes, the mad scientist's 10,000 feet tall body was like a fiend god. Back then, your Divine Kingdom sent out so many experts, but you still couldn't conquer the sky cloud realm, let alone you little thieves. The mad scientist's voice was like thunder. The blood demon's power swept towards the group of people like a tide. The blood demon's power was the fusion of the Een demon's power and the evil demon's power. It was unknown how many times stronger it was than the Een demon's power and the evil demon's power. When the blood demon's power drowned the group of people, they immediately felt the blood demon's power invading their bodies and devouring their flesh, divine power, and divine soul. In less than 3 breaths, someone couldn't take it anymore. Accompanied by a scream, his body melted and turned into a pool of blood. What kind of technique is this? The Demon Palace's disciples were shocked when they saw this scene. Strange. Elder Hua also frowned. What's strange? The Grand Elder looked at him in confusion. This mad scientist's blood demon's power. This old man has seen it before, but it wasn't so destructive. Elder Hua muttered. Moreover, he could feel that after the madman transformed, he was stronger than before. What was going on? What did he obtain in the Moon of Evil? You're courting death. The 2 young men and women who had grasped the ultimates of the ultimates saw their companions turn into pools of blood one after another. Their brows were filled with hostility. In the next moment, the crescent mark between their eyebrows emitted a dazzling divine light. Boom. Immediately after, the ultimates of the Law of Light and the Law of Fire were activated again. This time, the power unleashed by the 2 ultimate mysteries was much stronger than before. This change made Madman frown. The ultimate profundities of the Law of Slaughter and the Law of Lightning appeared in an instant, and with world-destroying power, they attacked the ultimate profundities of the Law of Light and the Law of Fire. With a loud bang, the 4 ultimate intents collided. An unexpected scene appeared. Originally, they were evenly matched ultimate profundities, but at this moment, the young man and woman's ultimate profundities of the Law of Light and the Law of Fire crushed the madman's 2 ultimate profundities like a hot knife through butter. What? Madman was shocked. Elder Hua and the others were also in disbelief. They were both using the ultimate profundities of ordinary laws, so how could he possibly suppress his opponent? What was going on? Suddenly, they looked at the crescent moon mark between their eyebrows. Could it be related to this mark? While the madman was distracted, the laws of light and the laws of fire's ultimate profundities slammed into the madman's body like 2 meteors. Little lunatic, Elder Hua exclaimed. The madman finally came back to his senses, and with a roar, he raised his 2 mountain-like hands and grabbed at the 2 ultimate profundities. But an even more shocking scene appeared. The madman grabbed the 2 ultimate profundities with both hands, and a wave of blood burst out from his palms. It was filled with an extremely evil aura. It was like the source of all evil. Shatter for this sovereign. In the next moment, the madman roared, and his hands exerted force. He actually used his hands to shatter the 2 ultimate profundities. Everyone present was stunned. Shattering 2 ultimate profundities with his bare hands. How is this possible? They must be dreaming. Everyone rubbed their eyes and looked at the madman again. The madman was still standing proudly in the air. Although he had shattered the 2 ultimate profundities, his hands were still bleeding. Every drop of blood contained an extremely terrifying evil aura, as if he was the embodiment of the source of all evil. The so-called source of all evil was the source of all evil. Too strong. Although he was injured, his huge body and the embodiment of evil weren't enough to describe the madman at this moment. He was a god that controlled all evil. Who the hell are you? The mark of the god race can greatly increase the power of the profundities. Although it can't reach the inheritance of the strongest ultimate profundities, it can still completely crush ordinary ultimate profundities. But you can actually shatter our ultimate profundities with just your body and this evil power. Are you really a young man from the sky cloud field? Why do I feel that you are more like an old antique that has lived for countless years? The young man and woman from the divine kingdom stared at the madman in horror. This was simply a monster. Old antique, the madman muttered. The insight of these two was quite strong. According to the identity of the Blood Demon King, he was indeed an old antique. But now he was the madman. A madman from the ancient world. Ah, screams could be heard endlessly. The other young men from the divine kingdom were constantly turned into puddles of blood under the power of the blood demon. The young man and woman from the divine kingdom relied on their powerful profundities of law to barely hold on. However, they soon discovered that this evil power had begun to nibble away at their profundities of law. It can even erode the profundities of law. The two looked at each other, turned around, and fled into the sky. There was no way to continue fighting with this monster. Leave. The madman chuckled. The giant blood-stained hand covered the sky and the earth as it slapped toward the two. In the palm, waves of blood rolled out like a sea of blood, drowning out all directions. If one looked carefully, they would discover that there was a blood moon mark in the center of his palm at this moment. The blood waves were born from this mark. As his palm fell, the young man and woman from the divine kingdom screamed on the spot. Blood splattered across the sky as their bodies and souls were destroyed. The other young men from the divine kingdom also died tragically under the power of the blood demon. Not a single one was left. They were all wiped out. This is the little madman's current strength? Elder Hua Chu-yun and the demon hall lord looked at each other. This was completely unimaginable. The geniuses from the divine kingdom were like the sun, but they couldn't resist at all. What a terrifying fellow. Everyone said that the blood ancestor was an old demon, but it seemed that this little madman was the true demon king. High up in the sky, the madman looked in the direction of the land of the buried gods. The power of the blood demon that filled the sky returned to his body like a tide. The blood moon mark in his palm also disappeared. His body also quickly shrank and returned to the appearance of an ordinary person. Amazing! Elder Hua flew in front of the madman and chuckled. The madman turned around and looked at Elder Hua. His blood-red eyes seemed to have a trace of coldness. They didn't have the same emotions as before. This gaze made Elder Hua feel a great sense of danger. However, very quickly, the madman's eyes returned to normal as he smiled proudly. They're just a bunch of small fries. I don't care about them at all. When Elder Hua heard this, he was speechless. If that was the case, wouldn't they be worse than small fries? The madman glanced at the demon palace and suddenly froze. He asked, "You have a time array here?" Yes. This was set up by the blood ancestor. It lasts 5,000 years a day. Elder Hua nodded. Why would this old man be so kind? The madman was surprised. The blood ancestor is a pretty good person. Elder Hua smiled. He is indeed pretty good now. The madman nodded and stepped into the demon palace. I'll go into seclusion first. Don't call me if there's nothing important. Seclusion? Elder Hua was stunned. He quickly chased after the madman and said, Not long ago, the city lords reported that people from the divine kingdom appeared in almost all the major cities of the eastern continent. Before you go into seclusion, can you help deal with them? As long as they don't massacre the cities, they can do whatever they want. After saying this, the madman disappeared into the depths of the demon palace without looking back. This little madman seems a little different from before. Chu Yun sat beside Elder Hua and looked into the depths of the demon palace. She frowned. There is a problem. Elder Hua nodded. There was a trace of suspicion on his face. What was going on? Time flew by. Half a year passed. Thousands of people from the Divine Kingdom swept through the entire Sky Cloud realm. Although there were casualties, there wasn't a large-scale massacre. Because these geniuses from the Divine Kingdom only went around challenging the younger generation of the Sky Cloud realm. And there wasn't a single young person in the 4 continents who could fight with them. The Divine Palace, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, and the Heavenly Palace were the same. For a time, the entire Sky Cloud realm was shrouded in a layer of oppressive atmosphere. On this day, a white-clothed youth descended on the phoenix nest. Not only did he challenge the younger generation of the Foam people, he didn't even let go of the older generation. However, no one in the entire phoenix nest was his match. In other words, this young man had overturned the entire phoenixes with his own strength. On the same day, the Qilin Sacred Land also welcomed a white-clothed youth. This youth's strength was also extremely powerful. No one in the Qilin clan was his match. After the youth left, the Qilin Sacred Land was left in a mess. Qi Shaoran, don't you control the ultimate law? Why didn't you make a move? After the event, the various patriarchs furiously went to Qi Shaoyun's residence and criticized him. That's right. Throughout the entire process, Qi Shaoyun didn't appear, as if he didn't know anything. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Do you still need me to teach you such a simple principle? Qi Shaoyun drank the ancient dragon god tea and looked at the group of people indifferently. Qi Ji and the white-bearded old man were also sitting beside him. We know this principle, but the Divine Kingdom has already attacked the Qilin Sacred Land. Go and take a look. What has happened to the Qilin Sacred Land? Since the old ancestor passed this heavy responsibility to you before his death, you should protect the Qilin Sacred Land and our clansmen well. If you don't have the ability, then hand over the power in your hands. The various patriarchs were furious. Sure. That's exactly what I want. Whoever has the ability can go. Qi Shaoyun said indifferently. Chapter 39:11. The patriarchs were dumbfounded when they heard Qi Shaoyun's words. Qi Xiong was among them. Although Qi Shaoyun was his nephew, he had always disliked Qi Shaoyun. He had wanted to use this opportunity to make things difficult for Qi Shaoyun. Unexpectedly, Qi Shaoyun was really going to quit. They were at a loss as to what to do. All the sovereign weapons had acknowledged Qi Shaoyun as their master. Moreover, Qi Shaoyun was the only person in the entire race who had grasped the ultimate profundity of a supreme law. If he quit, wouldn't the entire race be in danger? It would be fine if this was a peaceful era. But now, a great enemy of the Divine Kingdom was right before them. With their strength, how could they contend against the Divine Kingdom without Qi Shaoyun's help? Not talking anymore? Shut up if you don't dare. Let me say this first. If anyone dares to question my words in the future, don't blame me for not caring about our race. Disperse. Don't provoke the Divine Kingdom. You don't have the ability to do so. Qi Shaoyun waved his hand. The group exchanged glances and left angrily. The white-bearded old man looked at Qi Shaoyun and smiled hoarsely. Don't be influenced by these fools. You made the right decision this time. That's right. At a time like this, we'd rather suffer some grievances than show off. Qi Ji nodded. After the death of their master, the Qilin race was no longer as strong as before. It was best to avoid showing off. Otherwise, if they were targeted by the young people of the Divine Kingdom, they would have a hard time in the future. Qi Shaoyun looked at the two and sighed. Fortunately, the two of you understand me. Don't worry. We know that every decision you make is for the good of the Qilin race. The two smiled. On the same day, a woman in a white dress entered the Een Devil domain. However, she was blocked outside by the barrier set up by the Heavenly God Sword. The Heavenly God Sword was a mid-grade sovereign weapon. She couldn't break through it. However, she did not leave. Long Qin, please come out and fight. His voice was not very loud, but it passed through the barrier and into the dragon's nest, lingering for a long time. All the members of the dragons woke up from their seclusion, their faces full of shock. Meanwhile, in a large hall, Longqin raised his eyebrows and stepped out of the palace. Within a few breaths, he landed in front of the barrier. He looked at the woman in white outside with a cold glint in his eyes. "Are you from Longqin?" the white-dressed woman asked. "I am." Longqin nodded. She had already received news of the arrival of these people. But what they did not expect was that these people were so bold that they actually dared to come directly to the dragon's lair and challenge the siblings. Especially now, the woman in the white dress was all alone. "I heard from Ryuko that you are very strong. Come out and fight." The woman in white smiled faintly. "They're not dead?" Longqin frowned. "Of course. It's not that easy to kill them." The white-dressed woman nodded. Longqin's expression suddenly showed a trace of anger, and he mocked. "They actually left their divine souls in the divine kingdom. It seems that the people of the divine kingdom are also afraid of death." After spending so much effort, the top 10 prodigies were still alive. It was really annoying. "Isn't this normal? Don't worry about whether they're dead or not. I'm really looking forward to seeing how strong you are. Come out quickly. Don't let me come here for nothing." The white-dressed woman smiled, full of provocation. "Okay." Longqin nodded. "Your Highness, you can't." Suddenly, a figure broke through the air. It was the crown prince of the dragons. "What are you doing?" Longqin frowned. The crown prince of the dragons said, "This person knows your strength and still dares to come and challenge you. He must be very confident, so it's best to wait for His Highness Longqin to come back. If my brother doesn't come back, then are we going to stay here forever?" When Longqin heard this, he couldn't help but be annoyed. "You must be joking. How can His Highness Longqin not come back?" The crown prince of the dragons smiled awkwardly. Longqin glared at the crown prince of the dragons. He lowered his head and pondered for a while. Suddenly, a light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the white-dressed woman and said with a smile, "You must have mistaken the target of the challenge." "What do you mean?" The white-dressed woman was taken aback. Longqin said with a smile, "You should challenge Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Wings Wolf King." "Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden Wings Wolf King," the white-dressed woman murmured. In the past 6 months in the Sky Cloud realm, she had heard these 3 names more than once. From everyone's words, it seemed that these 3 were very powerful people. "Wait until you defeat them, then come and challenge me." Longqin chuckled and turned to leave without looking back. The crown prince of the dragon's eyes flashed, and he quickly followed, secretly admiring Longqin's methods. Ever since the divine kingdom descended, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 had been indifferent. Even the geniuses of the divine kingdom didn't know of their existence. Longqin's action undoubtedly pushed Qin Feiyang and the other 2 to the top of the wave. Facing the provocation of the geniuses of the divine kingdom, the 3 naturally couldn't continue to slack off. The white-dressed woman looked at the 2's backs and raised her eyebrows slightly. She turned and left. A few days later, the southern continent. In the sky above a barren mountain, 2 men and a woman gathered together, their brows tightly knitted together. They were the ones who challenged the Feng people, the dragons and the Kirins. The white-dressed woman frowned and said, "Who do you think Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden Wings Wolf King are? Why do the people of the Sky Cloud realm worship them so much? According to my investigation, they are indeed extraordinary. But there is one thing that is very strange. The people of the Sky Cloud realm seem to be deliberately hiding things about these 3 people." A white-clothed youth next to her said. "Hiding things?" The white-dressed woman was stunned. "Yes. In short, they don't want to talk about it." The white-clothed youth nodded. "Strange." The white-dressed woman murmured. The other white-clothed youth smiled and said, "Why think so much? Won't we know when we meet them? I don't know the whereabouts of Qin Feiyang and Golden Wings Wolf King, but I have found out the whereabouts of this Madman Mo." "Where?" The 2 looked at the white-clothed youth. "Eastern Continent, Demonic Palace." "And the people who went to Demonic Palace back then seem to have been killed by this person," the youth said. "What?" The 2 were shocked. Although the commotion at that time was huge, because our people were all wiped out, the demonic palace deliberately blocked the news, so I only found out about it recently. And this madman Mo seems to still be in seclusion in the demonic palace. The youth said. Is that so? Then let's go to the eastern continent. The white-dressed woman smiled, her eyes full of expectation. Black Tortoise Realm. What's going on? Little madman came back, but he didn't come to find us and is hiding in the demonic palace. The white-eyed wolf, Master Jura, and Princess Huofeng had already come out of seclusion. At this moment, the white-eyed wolf was sitting in the tea garden, drinking from a jar of wine while complaining in dissatisfaction. Meanwhile, Fire Dance was sitting on his lap with an intimate appearance. As for the Master Jura, he continued to comprehend other ultimate mysteries. It is a little strange. Fire Dance nodded, pondered for a while and said, and did you notice when Elder Hu sent us a message that Madman is a little different from before? No matter how different he is still our brother. No, we have to go ask him what's going on. The white-eyed wolf stood up. Then should we inform Qin Feiyang? Fire Dance asked. This guy is focused on comprehending the law of life and death. Let's not disturb him. Let's go. Let's go find Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus can send us out. After saying that, the white-eyed wolf pulled Fire Dance and walked toward a courtyard. Chapter 39:12. The Eastern Continent. Even though Madman had killed dozens of people in the Demon Invasion Hall, and 4 in Cloud Sea City, the other cities weren't so lucky. Especially East Sea City, Wind Sea City, and Sky Sea City. Those 3 cities were as famous as Cloud Sea City, and they were the 4 super cities of the Eastern Continent. Those places had practically become tourist spots for the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom. They would visit them frequently and challenge the younger generation of the human race. It could be said that the Eastern Continent was even livelier than when Qin Feiyang and the others had been here all those years ago. But the Demon Palace was very peaceful. Firstly, the barrier around the Crimson Sword prevented the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom from entering the Demon Palace. Secondly, Madman was in charge. Thirdly, the disciples of the Demon Palace were very well behaved during this period and never went out to show off. But the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom could occasionally be seen in the mountains near the Demon Palace. He wondered what they were observing in the evening. A few hundred geniuses of the Divine Kingdom were gathered in a mountain about 50 kilometers away from the Demon Palace. Regardless of whether it was a man or a woman, they all exuded an extraordinary aura. They whispered to each other as if they were waiting for something. Swoosh! Around an hour later, a spatial passageway opened up in the sky. 2 men and a woman stepped out. As soon as they appeared, the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom instantly quieted down and looked at them with reverence. How is it? The woman in white looked at the hundreds of people below and asked. One of the youths walked out. Looking at the white-robed woman, he respectfully said, during this period of time, we have been paying attention to the movements of the Devil Hall. However, this person called Madman Mo has never appeared again. Furthermore, the Devil Hall has a sovereign divine weapon. This sovereign divine weapon has sealed off the entire Devil Hall. A sovereign weapon? Don't they know that using a sovereign weapon is breaking the agreement between Qin Xiaotian and the king? The woman in white frowned. Sister Shuang, they only used the sovereign weapon to defend themselves and didn't use it against us. It can't be considered breaking the agreement. The 2 youths in white smiled faintly. I finally understand. In the entire Sky Cloud realm, apart from people like Yin Xiang and Long Chun, no one else can take the stage. The white-dressed woman sneered. That's true. Not to mention the human race, even the Feng people, the dragons and the Qilin race are not worthy of my attention. Not to mention the people of the older generation. Apart from the Feather Emperor and a few other reclusive old antiques, the strongest of the remaining people are about the same level as us. For example, the clan leaders and elders of the 3 great clans. None of them have comprehended the ultimate profound. As long as we activate the power of the mark, killing them will be a piece of cake. The young men said with disdain. The reclusive old antiques of the 3 major races aren't enough to reach the apex. When I went to phone people, I took the initiative to challenge those old antiques. In the end, they all fell at my feet. One of the white-clothed youths waved his hand. Another white-clothed youth said, "When I went to the Chilean race, it was the same. Those so-called old antiques only grasped the ultimate profound of an ordinary law. With our strength, not to mention ordinary ultimate profound of an ordinary law, even the strongest ultimate profound of an ultimate law may not be our match." The white-dressed woman smiled proudly. When the two white-clothed youths heard this, they couldn't help but smile. "Let's go. Let's go straight to the demon palace. It's just a barrier of a sovereign divine weapon. How can it stop me?" The white-dressed woman's eyes flashed coldly. She took a step forward and instantly traversed dozens of miles, arriving above the entrance of the demon palace. The others also followed. "Who is it?" At the entrance, the great elder was personally guarding. Sensing the aura of a group of people, the great elder immediately opened his eyes and looked up in surprise. When he saw the crescent moon mark between the brows of the white-dressed woman and the others, his eyebrows raised. "Let Madman Mo come out," the white-dressed woman said faintly. In response, the great elder ignored her and closed his eyes, continuing to meditate. Elder Hua and the others also sensed the aura of a group of people, but they also ignored them. The white-dressed woman raised her eyebrows, and a terrifying cold current swept out. She stared at the great elder and said, "I don't want to say this a second time." But the great elder still turned a deaf ear. If they were here as guests, he would definitely welcome them warmly and act as a host. But now these people were obviously here to cause trouble. And with the barrier around, he was very relieved. "Sigh. An ignorant fool." The white-dressed woman shook her head and sighed. She slowly raised her arm, and the power of law surged out like a torrent. It was the time law. The great elder opened his eyes again, and looked at the white-dressed woman in surprise. "Do you think a barrier can stop me? You must be dreaming." The white-dressed woman smiled contemptuously. Accompanied by a loud clang, a translucent longsword appeared, and its sharpness surged toward the demon palace like a tide. Boom! Under the impact of the sharpness, the barrier set up by the red longsword appeared in the void. This is the aura of the time law's ultimate intent. Elder Hua and the others couldn't stay calm anymore. They all ran out and looked at the white-dressed woman in shock. Another monster who had grasped the ultimate intent of the ultimate intent of the ultimate intent of the divine kingdom had come. Why were the young people of the divine kingdom so sick? Don't beg for mercy now, because it's too late. Once an opportunity is lost, it won't come again. The white-dressed woman smiled coldly. Her longsword tore through the sky and slashed at the barrier below. "Prepare for battle." The great elder suddenly stood up and roared. The entire demon palace was instantly in chaos. "Battle? Haha. With your strength you dare to fight with us. Don't say that we bullied you. You can use your sovereign divine weapon, and see if you can hurt us." The two white-robed youths laughed loudly. They were extremely arrogant. Elder Hua quickly asked the mad child to come out of seclusion. The demon palace master said in a deep voice, "How can the mad child not know about such a big commotion? And now he hasn't appeared. It's obvious that he's at the critical moment of his seclusion." Elder Hua shook his head. But now, other than the mad child, who else could stop these geniuses of the divine kingdom? If the other party didn't even care about the sovereign divine weapon, then their strength must have surpassed the sovereign divine weapon. Not to mention anything else. Their sovereign divine weapon alone couldn't turn the situation around. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the longsword formed by the ultimate intent of the time law had already arrived. Accompanied by a loud bang, the barrier immediately distorted. After all, it was a sovereign divine weapon. The ultimate intent and the sovereign divine weapon's power were about the same. So the first strike didn't directly break the barrier. But now, if they didn't think of a way soon, the barrier would break. Because there was still a second and third strike. Clang! As expected, the longsword soared into the sky and slashed at the barrier again. Cracks immediately appeared, and the terrifying sharpness penetrated the cracks and entered the barrier. The demon palace disciples were shocked and hurriedly turned around and fled. Majestic palaces and giant peaks continued to collapse. In just an instant, the outer area of the demon palace was flattened by this sharpness. This is the power of the ultimate intent? It's terrifying. Even the barrier set up by the sovereign divine weapon can't block it. All the disciples were trembling. Their gazes also looked toward a giant peak in the depths of the demon palace. At the peak of the giant peak sat a black-clothed youth. It was the mad child. But at this moment, the mad child didn't seem to notice it, and didn't move at all. Clang! The third strike also fell. If no one came out to stop it, not only would the barrier collapse, but the entire demon palace would also be razed to the ground. The people inside would also be in danger. Senior brother mad child, wake up! The demon palace disciples were roaring. Although Qin Feiyang and the mad child hadn't been to the demon palace before, they had always been disciples of the demon palace. This was something everyone knew. Moreover, Elder Hua and the others had always regarded them as disciples of the demon palace. Of course, the two of them also had another identity. They were disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. In short, they had too many identities in the Sky Cloud realm. So now, these demon palace disciples all respectfully addressed the mad child as senior brother. Although there were many disciples here who had entered the demon palace earlier than Qin Feiyang and the mad child and were much older, the matter of addressing them was generally addressed by the strong. Whoever was strong would be the senior brother. Hearing everyone's cries for help, the mad child raised his brows and was about to open his eyes. But then, he seemed to have sensed something. The corner of his mouth raised into a smile, and then he ignored everyone's cries for help. At the same time, in the sky above the demon palace, a space-time tunnel suddenly appeared. A man and a woman walked out hand in hand. It was the white-eyed wolf and fire dance. Sensing the terrifying sharpness emitted by the long sword, the two of them were slightly stunned. What's going on? Immediately, they raised their heads and looked at the sky above the demon palace. Damn! They actually fought their way into the demon palace? Are they courting death? The white-eyed wolf was furious on the spot. White-eyed wolf! Princess Huofeng! Elder Hua and the others finally saw the two of them, and were instantly shocked. The white-eyed wolf and fire dance ignored them for the time being. What are you doing? With a furious roar, the white-eyed wolf let go of Princess Huofeng and stepped in front of the door. The law of time rolled out, and an identical long sword appeared in an instant, and faced the long sword of the woman in white. It was also the ultimate meaning of the law of time. With a loud bang, the ground collapsed and the void was annihilated. Terrifying destructive waves surged in all directions. The woman in white was stunned. The two white-clothed youths and the hundreds of Divine Kingdom geniuses also looked at the white-eyed wolf in shock. The ultimate meaning of the law of time? Who was this divine being? Who is he? Why is he with Princess Huofeng? The disciples of the demon palace also looked at the white-eyed wolf with suspicion. Not many people knew about the white-eyed wolf's human form. Ever since he came out of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, he had been in the Black Tortoise world. Therefore, when they saw his human form, they did not recognize him immediately. He is the Golden-Winged Wolf King. A smile finally appeared on Elder Hua's face. What? He is the Golden-Winged Wolf King. This is my first time seeing his human form. This guy really lives up to his reputation. He has also grasped the ultimate meaning of the law of time. Everyone was enlightened. The white-eyed wolf turned his head and looked at the disciples. He grinned and said, "Am I handsome?" Handsome. The disciples of the demon palace were stunned, and then shouted in unison. Chapter 39:13. Then who is more handsome than little Qinzi or little lunatic? The white-eyed wolf asked again. It has to be you. Everyone laughed. The heavy atmosphere instantly lightened up. You have good taste. The white-eyed wolf was very satisfied. When Lunatic heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched violently. Was he here to compare who was prettier? Golden-Winged Wolf King? At the same time, the white-dressed woman and the others looked at each other. Was this the legendary Golden-Winged Wolf King? He was indeed quite powerful. After all, he had mastered the ultimate meaning of the ultimate law. Even in the Divine Kingdom, he was a rare genius. However, this person seemed a little unreliable. In layman's terms, he was not serious. The white-eyed wolf grinned at Elder Hua and the others. then turned to look at the white-dressed woman and the others. Upon closer inspection, he immediately noticed the mark between their eyebrows. Fire Dance also landed beside the white-eyed wolf. Did you guys notice? When he appeared with Princess Huafeng, they seemed to be holding hands. What's going on? Are you an idiot? Why are you asking such a question? They must be in love. In love. Then this golden-winged wolf king has profited. Look at this Princess Huafeng. She has both strength and beauty. She is simply a goddess. I'm so envious. Why don't I have such good luck? I'd better take a piss and look at myself in the mirror first. Hearing these discussions, Fire Dance turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and said proudly, "Did you hear that? You are lucky to have met me in your previous life. You really believe people when they compliment you. Naive." The white-eyed wolf looked at her with disdain. Compliment? Fire Dance immediately stared at the white-eyed wolf maliciously. The white-eyed wolf suddenly felt a chill down his spine. His face was full of flattery as he said telepathically, "My dear wife, there are so many people watching. Please leave me some face." "Who is your wife?" Fire Dance blushed and secretly glared at the white-eyed wolf. The white-dressed woman and the others were dumbfounded. Flirting in front of everyone. Did they think they didn't exist? Can't they see the situation? The white-eyed wolf looked at the group and apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean you guys. But to be honest, your presence." As soon as these words were spoken, a group of people immediately flew into a rage. How could the geniuses of Scandinavia say that they didn't have any sense of existence? The white-eyed wolf looked at the mark on the group's forehead and asked, "Excuse me, what is that mark you have on you?" "This is the first time." The group of people rolled their eyes. "The god race?" The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned and asked curiously, "What is the god race? Is it strong? How is it compared to the purple gold divine dragon race? The god race is not a thing." "Watch your words," one of the young men said angrily. "So the god race is not a thing." The white-eyed wolf nodded and pretended to think for a while. He looked at the young man and asked, "Then what are you guys?" "We." The young man was about to say something, but he finally realized that the white-eyed wolf was obviously teasing them. He shouted, "You are the one who is not a thing." "I'm definitely not a thing because I'm your big brother wolf, and you guys?" The white-eyed wolf glanced at the group and shook his head. "You guys don't look like good people." "Bastard, are you looking for death?" The group was furious. Even in the divine kingdom, no one dared to humiliate the god race, let alone an ant from a low-level civilization. The white-dressed woman's gaze also darkened slightly. She reached out her hand to stop the angry clansman. She looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "The famous golden-winged wolf king, do you only know how to talk? You guys already know my name?" The white-eyed wolf looked at the white-dressed woman in surprise. He grinned and said, "Do you guys worship me? You don't need to worship me. I'm just a legend. But look at your aptitudes. You guys are not bad. You are barely qualified to be my followers." The white-dressed woman and the others clenched their fists when they heard that. Their eyes flashed with killing intent. "Little follower? Who gave you the guts to say such words to the people of the god race? Can you be more serious?" Fire Dance held back her laughter and looked at the white-eyed wolf unhappily. "Am I not serious?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He turned to look at the Demon Palace disciples and asked, "Say something fair. Am I not serious now?" Everyone in the Demon Palace, including Elder Hua and the others, could not help but roll their eyes. Could he have some self-awareness? Was there a need to ask such a question? Did he not know whether he was serious or not? Was he here to support them or to make fun of them? This was a headache. All right. The white-eyed wolf was helpless. He looked at the white-dressed woman and the others inside. "I'm a peace-loving person. You guys can leave. If you want to cause trouble, go and cause trouble to the Feng people, the dragons and the Kirans. Leave." The group of people laughed out of anger. The moment he arrived, he humiliated them without saying anything. Now he wanted to send them away by saying that he was a peace-loving person. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Moreover, is this the attitude that a peace-loving person should have? He was obviously looking down on them. He did not care about them at all. Boom. The group of people could not hold back the anger in their hearts. They could not stand the white-eyed wolf's arrogant attitude. Terrifying auras burst out. Their eyes were about to spit fire. It was obvious how angry they were. The white-eyed wolf had just turned around and was about to leave with Huowu. However, when he felt the aura and anger of these people, he immediately turned around and looked at them. "You'll pay for your arrogance." Along with a furious roar, profundities of laws appeared one after another. Almost every one of them had 6 profundities of supreme profundities. Among them, 15 of them had grasped an ordinary law's ultimate profundity. This kind of strength shocked everyone in the demon palace. They did not expect that apart from the white-dressed woman and the others, there were so many people who had grasped an ultimate profundity. Although it was only an ordinary law's ultimate profundity, the strength of these 15 people was enough to wipe out the entire demon palace. No. It was enough to wipe out the entire eastern continent. Unless they used a sovereign divine weapon, no one could stop these people. Terrifying. Truly terrifying. How on earth did the younger generation of Scandinavia cultivate? They had such strength at such a young age. What do you mean by the younger generation? In terms of age, I'm afraid these people are about the same as the reclusive old antiques of the 3 major races. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Haha. What a frog at the bottom of a well. The god race is born with extraordinary talent. Every one of us is a monstrous genius. In a place like the Sky Cloud Realm, even a super monstrous genius is at the bottom of the god race. The group of god race geniuses sneered. That's not right. According to what you said, each of you should have grasped an ultimate profundity of supreme profundity. Because the few geniuses of the Sky Cloud Realm, such as Li Feng and Yun Xiang, have grasped ultimate profundities of supreme profundities. But now, I don't see any of you activating an ultimate profundity of supreme profundity. In fact, many of you don't even have an ordinary law's ultimate profundity. Could it be that you're still holding back your strength? Don't. Since you're all so powerful, then show it all. Just now, this brother has also broadened my horizons. I've never seen a few hundred people activating an ultimate profundity of supreme profundity at the same time. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the group of people suspiciously. When the group of god race geniuses heard this, they immediately turned green and red. Just a moment ago, he said that the super monstrous geniuses of the Sky Cloud Realm could only be at the bottom of the god race. But in the next moment, the white-eyed wolf compared them to Yun Xiang and Li Feng, directly slapping them in the face. Similarly, it also made them angry out of shame. All the profundities of supreme profundities blasted toward the white-eyed wolf. What's going on? Didn't I ask you to activate the ultimate profundity of supreme profundity? The white-eyed wolf had a puzzled look. They probably prefer to keep a low profile. Fire Dance smiled slightly. When these words fell into the eyes of the group of god race geniuses, their cheeks immediately flushed, and they were too ashamed to show their faces. To hell with it. Who wants to keep a low profile? If they all grasped the ultimate profundity of supreme profundity, would they still be allowed to be so arrogant? I see. So they all like to keep a low profile. But the white-eyed wolf nodded in realization. But in the next moment, his tone changed, revealing a shocking sharpness as he laughed sinisterly. I'm the opposite. I'm a high-profile person. Boom. As his voice fell, the ultimate profundity of the time law was activated. The long sword shattered the void, crushing everything in its path. What supreme profundities? What ordinary ultimate profundities? They were like dead trees that couldn't withstand a single blow. With their profundities crushed, the group of god race geniuses suffered a backlash. Blood gushed out, and their faces turned pale. You like to keep a high profile? Then we'll follow your high profile and go to hell together. The woman in the white dress made her move. Accompanied by a loud clang, she also immediately activated the ultimate profundity of the time law and slashed at the white-eyed wolf. White-eyed wolf, go to the galaxy. Elder Hor reminded. Okay. The white-eyed wolf grabbed the long sword and rushed toward the galaxy. Once a battle of this level completely erupted, the demonic palace would be destroyed in a matter of minutes. Even the living beings in the vicinity would be annihilated. This was because there were already many people and beasts watching the battle from afar. Since you're so arrogant, you must have a way to protect them. Let's fight here. However, the woman in the white dress wasn't willing to go to the galaxy, nor did she chase after the white-eyed wolf. She slashed her sword at Princess Huofeng. This was because as long as she attacked Princess Huofeng, the white-eyed wolf would come down himself. The white-eyed wolf stopped and lowered his head to look at the woman in the white dress. His eyes were filled with killing intent. How dare she attack his woman? She was courting death. This is a contest between us. Why do you have to involve those innocent living beings? Are human lives so cheap in your eyes? Chapter 39:14. When the white-dressed woman heard this, her eyes were filled with disdain. She said indifferently, "Just a bunch of ants, worthless. What about you? Are your lives worth anything?" A cold light flashed in Princess Huofeng's eyes. How can you lowly creatures compare to the God clan? Instead of worrying about them, you should think about your own situation first. The white-dressed woman's eyes flashed with killing intent. Her longsword had already reached Princess Huofeng. You're really infuriating. Princess Huofeng enunciated each word. Her tone was extremely cold. The next moment, boom, a dazzling golden light appeared. A golden divine lotus as huge as a mountain appeared. It carried the power to destroy the world and suppress the white-dressed woman. Karma Divine Lotus! The white-dressed woman exclaimed. She quickly waved her longsword and slashed at the Karma Divine Lotus. The two white-dressed youths and the hundreds of God clan geniuses also looked at Princess Huofeng in shock. Before, Huo Wu had been standing behind the white-eyed wolf, so they thought that this woman's strength was not that great. But they never expected that she had grasped the ultimate profundity of the ultimate law. Wasn't it agreed that the only young geniuses in the Sky Cloud realm were Yin Xiang, Li Feng, Long Chun and Long Qin? But now, not only was there Madman Mo and the Golden-Winged Wolf King, but there was also an unknown woman? Boom. In an instant, the longsword and the Karma Divine Lotus collided. A destructive power erupted. Go to the galaxy. Elder Ho was extremely anxious. Although the red longsword had repaired the broken barrier, it would shatter sooner or later if this continued. Elder Ho, don't worry. Huo Wu smiled. With a wave of her hand, the Phoenix Bell and the other 11 sovereign divine weapons appeared. What? The God clan geniuses were shocked again. Many of them turned around and ran. Even the woman in white was forced back by the Karma Divine Lotus, with a single strike of her sword. She instinctively retreated. Who could remain calm in the face of 11 sovereign divine weapons? Don't worry. I won't break the promise. Fire Dance pursed her lips into a sneer. Wasn't he arrogant? Why are you running when you see a sovereign weapon? Boom. As soon as Fire Dance finished speaking, the 11 ruler weapons soared into the sky. Divine might enveloped the entire area. However, in the blink of an eye, a gigantic barrier appeared, isolating the battlefield. It's all right. Elder Hui heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. As long as it doesn't affect the demon hall and those innocent living beings, you can do whatever you want. Haha. It's just an isolated battlefield, and you so-called geniuses of the god race are scared to this extent. What an eye-opener. Inside the barrier, the white-eyed wolf stood in the air, laughing non-stop. Clang. The woman in the white dress immediately soared into the sky and slashed out with her sword. You're still angry from embarrassment. I'm the one who should be angry. You actually dared to touch my woman. You really haven't fucking died yet. The white-eyed wolf laughed angrily. With a monstrous aura, he charged toward the woman in the white dress. The two young men in white looked at each other, then at Fire Dance at the same time. This woman was the most threatening person. A total of 11 ruler weapons. Even prodigies of the god race like them could only dream of obtaining them. One of the young men immediately took a step forward. With a terrifying aura, he charged toward Fire Dance and said, I'm Jiang Chun. Please advise me. Fire Dance glanced at him and directly stepped out of the barrier. The young man froze. A person who grasped the ultimate profundity of the strongest law. A person who held 11 ruler weapons, actually chose to avoid a battle? Why didn't the people of the Sky Cloud realm play their cards according to common sense? This feeling was like a punch that had been charged for a long time had landed on soft cotton. He was extremely annoyed. With my man here, do you still need me to make a move? Fire Dance smiled confidently. Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and looked up at the white-eyed wolf. She actually has so much confidence in this person? Good. Then let's see what kind of means she has. High up in the sky, the white-eyed wolf and the woman in white were locked in battle. The power of the law of time was surging like a tide. The surrounding void was collapsing crazily. If this continues, you have no chance of winning. Hurry up and show me your other means. The white-eyed wolf was fighting with ease. In terms of combat experience and awareness, who was he afraid of? As you wish. Boom. Accompanied by the appearance of a lightning pool, streaks of 7-colored divine lightning roared in the sky. The ultimate profundity of the law of thunder. Is she in existence on the same level as the original 10 prodigies? Elder Hua and the others were surprised and couldn't help but worry. This was because they knew that the white-eyed wolf had only grasped the ultimate profundity of the law of time. The other 5 profundities were only at the level of supreme profundities. Boom. The law of thunder and the law of time, 2 ultimate profundities, attacked the white-eyed wolf one after another. It's true that I have only grasped one ultimate profundity. However, if you think that you can defeat me with an ordinary ultimate profundity of the law of time, then you must be dreaming. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and attacked with his longsword. Immediately after, a flame mark appeared in between his eyebrows. It exuded a terrifying aura. Roar. In the next instant, a giant blood-colored wolf rushed out from the mark. It was 10,000 feet long and had 10 pairs of blood-red wings on its back. Its aura was monstrous. What the hell is that? The group of God race members were bewildered. This was because they felt a very dangerous aura from the giant blood-colored wolf. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the 2 ultimate profundities of the law of time collided first. Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the 2 ultimate profundities shattered at the same time. Immediately after, the giant blood-colored wolf rushed toward the woman in white's ultimate profundity of the law of thunder. What? He wants to use this to go against the ultimate profundity of the law of thunder? What kind of joke is this? No matter how heaven-defying a technique is, it's impossible to compete with an ultimate profundity. The group of God race members had mocking looks on their faces. This was simply asking for humiliation. However, in the next moment, a scene that left them dumbfounded appeared. The giant blood-colored wolf roared and charged forward. It actually dissipated in the void at the same time as the ultimate profundity of the law of thunder. They were evenly matched. Not to mention the group of God race members, even Elder Hua and the others had a look of disbelief on their faces. It seems to have become stronger again. Huowu muttered. Of course, she knew the white-eyed wolf's situation like the back of her hand. The white-eyed wolf had activated this giant blood-colored wolf in the past. It was even more terrifying than a super forbidden technique. Although that was the case, it had not reached the point where it could compete with an ultimate profundity before. Even if it was just an ordinary ultimate profundity of the law of thunder, it would not be enough. However, now, it could actually compete with an ordinary ultimate profundity of the law of thunder. It was obviously much stronger than before. Could it be that as the white-eyed wolf's strength increased, the giant blood-colored wolf's strength would also increase as well? This is really surprising. This technique has already surpassed the category of a forbidden technique. The woman in the white dress was also stunned for a moment. When she regained her senses, she looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "Thank you for the compliment." The white-eyed wolf laughed out loud. His face was full of pride. However, that's all. The woman in the white dress gaze trembled. The ultimate profundity of the law of time and the law of thunder appeared again. However, it was not over yet. Another law of thunder emerged. Moreover, it was not an ordinary law of thunder. It was an ultimate law, the law of destruction. Accompanied by a terrifying aura, the ultimate profundity, the heavenly eye of destruction appeared. What? Looking at this scene, even Princess Huofeng's expression changed. She had actually mastered 3 ultimate profundities and 2 ultimate profundities of the law of thunder. Her strength has indeed surpassed the previous 10 sky prides. The white-eyed wolf might be in danger. Elder Ho was even more worried. The white-eyed wolf's strength was undeniable. He had mastered 6 ultimate laws. If he could comprehend an ultimate profundity, he would definitely be an invincible existence. However, the key point was, right now, the white-eyed wolf had only mastered 1 ultimate profundity. Although the blood-red wolf was heaven-defying, it could only compete with the ultimate profundity of an ordinary law. How could he possibly defeat the opponent? So this is her strength. No wonder she dared to come to the dragon nest alone to challenge me. In the distance, on a mountain peak, a woman stood facing the wind. It was Long Qin. Although the battle had not been going on for long, it had already spread throughout the sky cloud realm. Therefore, not only Long Qin, but also people from the Feng people and the Kirin clan had come to watch the battle. Because this was the white-eyed wolf's first battle after coming out of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. Regardless of friend or foe, they were all very concerned. Prepare to die. The woman in the white dress waved her hand. The 3 ultimate profundities carried an aura of destruction that shook heaven and earth as they crazily attacked the white-eyed wolf. I really regret it. The white-eyed wolf's expression was extremely angry. What do you mean? Everyone was a little confused. I shouldn't have fused those laws in the past. If I had stayed until now, I wouldn't have needed to comprehend the ultimate profundities by myself. The white-eyed wolf sighed. These words almost made Elder Hua and the others vomit blood. This was a classic example of taking advantage of others and pretending to be innocent. Why don't you think about it? If you hadn't fused the 6 ultimate laws in the past, would you have been able to reach this step so smoothly? If you didn't have these laws, would you have made such a name for yourself? The most important thing was, if you hadn't fused them back then, with your lazy personality, I'm afraid your cultivation would still be at the peak imperishable realm. What can a peak imperishable realm cultivation do? Not to mention the people of the divine kingdom, even the creatures of the sky cloud realm, could casually pick one out and kill you. Don't be so greedy, okay? Go and ask around. Who in the sky cloud realm doesn't envy you for mastering the 6 ultimate laws? In short, this guy was so lazy that others could only look up to him. Because the white-eyed wolf wasn't untalented. On the contrary, he was very talented. If he was willing to work hard, even if he didn't fuse the laws, his achievements wouldn't be lower than Qin Feiyang's. But he was just lazy and didn't want to comprehend the laws. In any case, his life motto was, if you can pick up ready-made things, don't work hard. Can you be a little more serious? This is a battle of life and death. Do you think it's a game? Looking at the white-eyed wolf's sloppy attitude, the woman in the white dress was about to go crazy. How much did he look down on her? Facing her 3 ultimate profundities, he still had the mood to think about other things. Chapter 39:15. Calm down, calm down. 3 ultimate profound meanings. I'm definitely no match for you. After saying that, the white-eyed wolf activated the moment of time and ran away. That was true. How could he fight against 3 ultimate profound meanings? He could only run. That's it? The group of deities below looked at each other in dismay. They thought that since this person was so arrogant, he must have means that were not inferior to Long Chun and Li Feng. But in the end, he only mastered 1 ultimate profound of the law of time. How dare he be arrogant in front of them with such little strength? The woman in white did not expect the white-eyed wolf to run away. The 3 ultimate profound meanings missed their target and bombarded the barrier. A world-destroying aura immediately erupted. But the barrier was not damaged. After all, it was a barrier set up by 11 sovereign divine weapons. That was close. The white-eyed wolf appeared on the other side. Looking at the barrier that was shaking violently, his face was full of fear. If he was hit by the 3 ultimate profound meanings, would he die in one piece? The woman in white came back to her senses and suddenly turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. Don't look at me like that. Your big brother dodged your 3 ultimate profundities with his own strength. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. You're still smiling? The woman in white's eyes flashed coldly. She activated the moment of time and charged toward the white-eyed wolf. Damn it! You want to kill me so much. The white-eyed wolf's face changed. He activated the moment of time and played a game of cat and mouse in the barrier. The white-eyed wolf desperately ran in front, while the woman in white chased crazily from behind. Can you stop chasing me? I'm already taken. Although you look okay, I don't like you. As a woman, can't you be more reserved? The white-eyed wolf kept howling, full of provocation. Bastard. The woman in white trembled with anger. How could there be such a despicable person? Deep hatred, deep love. It's not good for you to be like this. The white-eyed wolf turned to the woman in white and grinned. Bastard. You actually dared to tease Sister Shuang again and again. Let's attack together and kill him. The two white-clothed youths' faces also darkened as their auras surged out. I don't need your help. The woman in the white dress yelled coldly as beams of divine light shot out from the crescent mark on her forehead. Be careful. When Elder Hu saw this, he quickly reminded him. Whoosh. Once the imprint was restored, the woman in white activated the flash of light and shadow, and her speed increased dramatically. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with the white-eyed wolf and slapped the white-eyed wolf's back. What? The white-eyed wolf turned pale with fright. There was actually such a thing? Caught off guard. After receiving a solid palm strike, he spat out a mouthful of golden blood. His entire body was like a meteor. It smashed into the ground below. Golden blood. The group from the god race was shocked. Boom. With a loud bang, the white-eyed wolf smashed deep into the ground, creating a huge crater. Drenched in blood? He was in an extremely sorry state. How could this be? Fire Dance looked at the imprint on the woman in white's forehead. There was a trace of bewilderment in her eyes. This seems to be called the God Race imprint. It can increase their strength. When Little Lunatic fought with the God Race, he almost suffered a great loss. Elder Hu walked to Fire Dance's side. He said in a deep voice, God Race imprint. Fire Dance murmured as she lowered her head to look at the white-eyed wolf lying in the crater. He looked extremely dissatisfied. He actually dared to tease another woman in front of her. It seemed that he was itching for a beating. The crater was extremely damaged. Dust billowed in the air. The woman in white stood in the air, looking at the golden blood floating in the air. There was also a trace of surprise in her eyes. However, she quickly threw it to the back of her mind. Who cares what bloodline you have? You'll become a corpse soon anyway. While you're sick, I'll take your life. The three ultimate mysteries appeared again, carrying a destructive aura as they charged toward the white-eyed wolf in the crater. Girl, quickly go and help him. Elder Hu hurriedly looked at Fire Dance. He deserves to die. Fire Dance snorted coldly. Who asked you to tease him? Continue. Elder Hu was speechless. Why are you still angry? Damn it. Do you really think I'm a kitten? The white-eyed wolf's angry roar resounded. Then a terrifying aura surged out like a volcanic eruption. In the next moment, a dazzling golden light roared out from the crater. It shot straight into the sky. The area within the barrier instantly turned into a golden ocean. Along with the appearance of the golden light, a golden beast shadow appeared in the sky. It was the white-eyed wolf's fighting soul. As soon as the fighting soul appeared, the entire area shook. Everyone present felt a fear that came from the depths of their souls. What's that? The group of God Race people looked at the golden beast shadow in shock. Deprive. A loud voice resounded. It was like the sound of heaven, resounding in everyone's mind. Then a scene that made the woman in white panic appeared. The golden beast shadow opened its mouth, and a terrifying force drowned her like a tide. She immediately felt that the force was depriving her of her cultivation. What was going on? In a moment of desperation, she hurriedly used the power of law to suppress this force, but she realized that she could not suppress it. Her cultivation was being rapidly deprived. Oh right. How could I forget about his fighting soul? Elder Hu looked at this scene and slapped his head hard. One had to know. The white-eyed wolf's special ability could not only deprive others of their fighting souls, but also their cultivation and laws. But in comparison, it was faster and more difficult to deprive one of their laws, because it required a certain amount of time. Right now, the white-eyed wolf obviously did not have the time to deprive the other party of her laws. This was because the three ultimate profound meanings of the woman in white were charging toward him aggressively. In addition, the woman in white was very powerful and had a group of companions. She would definitely not give him the time to deprive her of her laws. Therefore, the white-eyed wolf chose to deprive her of her cultivation. Depriving her of her cultivation was faster and easier than depriving her of her laws. As long as he could deprive the woman in white of her cultivation by a small level, the power of her ultimate profound meaning would naturally plummet. That was right. This was the white-eyed wolf's trump card. It was enough to make anyone tremble in fear. Previously, the white-eyed wolf's cheeky smile was actually not to tease the woman in white, but to numb her and make her careless. Once the woman in white became careless, his plan to deprive her of her cultivation would naturally be easier to accomplish. In the blink of an eye, just as the three ultimate profound meanings were about to reach the white-eyed wolf, the woman in white's cultivation suddenly dropped to the perfected dominator realm. How is this possible? Not only the woman in white, but the group of God clan below also had a look of disbelief on their faces. It could actually suppress one's cultivation? They had not realized the seriousness of the problem. This was not suppression at all, but deprivation. Suppression was only temporary. Deprivation, on the other hand, was permanent. As the woman in white's cultivation dropped, the power of the three ultimate profound meanings suddenly dropped by a level. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and activated the space-time law ultimate profound meaning. He grabbed the long sword and slashed it in the air. With a loud bang, the three ultimate profound meanings were annihilated on the spot. It was completely destroyed. This must be a dream. The shock in the hearts of the God Race group could not be any greater. What kind of technique was this? Whoosh! The white-eyed wolf took a step forward and instantly soared into the sky. He stood in front of the golden beast and looked at the woman in white with a mocking smile. What did you do to me? The woman in white had a gloomy expression. Isn't this right in front of you? Now you are a perfected dominator. And I, your brother, am a perfected dominator. Even if you have mastered the three ultimate profound meanings, even if that mark can increase your strength, it cannot make up for the difference in our cultivation levels. The white-eyed wolf had a smug expression. They had the same ultimate profound meaning, but different cultivation levels. It was a completely one-sided situation. The woman in white's heart sank. She looked up at the golden beast. Boom. Suddenly, two white-robed youths attacked and shattered the golden beast. They thought that as long as the golden beast disappeared, the woman in white's cultivation level would recover. However, the result left them dumbfounded. Although the golden beast had disappeared, the woman in white's cultivation level had not recovered. She was still a perfected dominator. What was going on? This time, the group of God clan was completely dumbfounded. It seems that you haven't realized the seriousness of the problem. The corners of the white-eyed wolf's mouth lifted. He did not conceal his mocking expression. Hearing this, the group of people suddenly felt uneasy. Could it be? If you encountered Long Chun and the others, even if you died in the sky cloud realm, you would not be affected. Because as long as you leave behind your divine soul in the divine kingdom in advance, you can be reborn. Your strength will not change at all. However, you are unfortunate to encounter me now. Even if you leave behind your divine soul in the divine kingdom, you will not be able to recover the cultivation that was taken away. The white-eyed wolf looked at the woman in white and grinned. Taken away. The woman in white trembled. Could it be that it was really as she thought? This was not a temporary loss of cultivation, but a permanent loss? Do not doubt your guess. This is a permanent loss. However, you do not need to be anxious. When you return to the divine kingdom, work hard and comprehend a new ultimate profound meaning. Your cultivation level will naturally recover to the perfected dominator realm. But now, I will send you back to the divine kingdom. Killing intent flashed in the white-eyed wolf's eyes. He activated Moment of Time, and instantly landed in front of the woman in white. The long sword in his hand tore through the sky. The woman in white screamed and was killed on the spot. Sister Shuang, Jiang Chen and the other man were furious when they saw this scene. However, the other people of the God clan were terrified. Permanent loss of cultivation? What kind of joke was this? How could there be such a ridiculous method? Who in the world did not understand the impact of the difference in cultivation level? Even if you mastered the ultimate meaning of the 6 strongest ultimate laws, if your cultivation level was lower than the other party could still crush you. It was not until this moment that they realized how terrifying the legendary golden-winged wolf king was. Taking away cultivation. This was simply a nightmare for all living things in the world. Not convinced? The white-eyed wolf lowered his head and looked at Jiang Chun and the other man. His eyes were full of ridicule. Looking at the white-eyed wolf, the two of them could not help but narrow their eyes. They could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Chapter 39:16. Jiang Xing, don't panic. As long as we don't give him time to deprive us of our cultivation. Jiang Chun suppressed the fear in his heart and looked at the white-clothed youth beside him. That's right. Jiang Xing nodded. The white-clothed woman was schemed against because she was careless. But now that they knew about this method, they just needed to be on guard in advance. Kill. The two took a step forward, and the power of law roared in all directions. Boom. However, at the same time, a terrifying evil aura erupted from the mountain peak in the depths of the Devil Palace. Madman, who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, finally opened his eyes. 2 rays of bloody light burst out from his eyes. At this moment, he was like a god that controlled all evil. Haha. In my previous life, I tried every method but was unable to successfully fuse with the source of all evil. But in this life, I actually succeeded so smoothly. It seems that I am more outstanding in this life. Divine Kingdom, despair. Madman raised his head and laughed. His expression was filled with excitement, as if he had obtained a great fortune. Are you crazy? The white-eyed wolf was taken aback and looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. He didn't know until he looked, but he was shocked. The current madman gave him an extremely strange feeling. Shua. At this moment, Madman also looked at the battlefield. He stood up and took a step forward. The next moment, he appeared inside the barrier. Little Madman, why are you joining in the fun? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Madman raised his head and looked at the white-eyed wolf. His eyes were incomparably cold, which made the white-eyed wolf frown. But at the same time, there seemed to be a trace of struggle in Madman's expression. His cold eyes gradually returned to normal as he laughed. I should be the one asking you this question. Why are you joining in the fun? The white-eyed wolf smiled. This was the little madman he was familiar with. Don't meddle in other people's business. They are my prey. Madman took a step forward and stood in front of Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing. His entire body emitted a terrifying aura. Each one is more arrogant than the other. Jiang Chun was furious. Boom. The power of law roared out. It was the law of space and time. With the activation of the space-time laws, a river of stars descended, its vast chi shaking the heavens and earth. Don't be shy. Both of you, come at me together. Madman chuckled. A terrifying space-time energy surged out of his body. A river of stars appeared. What? He actually also grasped the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law. Jiang Xing was stunned. Didn't they say that this person had grasped the ultimate profundities of the laws of thunder and the laws of slaughter? Boom. The 2 star rivers instantly collided. A destructive aura instantly enveloped the entire area. Jiang Chun was also very surprised. However, the cold light in his eyes became even more intense. The crescent moon mark on his forehead gave off a dazzling divine light. The next moment, 3 ultimate profound meanings appeared. They were the space-time laws of nature, the darkness laws of nature, and the light laws of nature. It seems that your strength is not as good as that woman from before. The madman's lips curled up in disdain as he looked at the 3 ultimate profundities. The laws of thunder, the laws of slaughter, and the laws of space and time manifested in the sky. Although the woman in white also had 3 ultimate profundities, 2 of them were ultimate profundities of supreme laws. As for this person, he only had 1 ultimate profundity of supreme laws. Even if I'm not as good as Sister Shuang, I can still trample you under my feet. Jiang Chen's gaze was bone-chillingly cold. The 3 ultimate profundities carried a monstrous might as they attacked the madman. Because of the amplification of the God race mark, these 3 ultimate profundities had already surpassed their original power. Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the madman's 3 ultimate profundities were directly destroyed. This god race mark is indeed extraordinary. The madman muttered. Half a year ago, the strongest god race genius, he killed only grasped the ultimate profundities of ordinary laws. But now, this Jiang Chen had grasped the ultimate profundities of supreme laws. This was the difference between heaven and earth. If it was half a year ago, he definitely wouldn't be able to compete with the ultimate profundities of supreme laws enhanced by the god race mark. But now thinking of this, the madman's lips curled up as his body instantly turned into a sea of blood. Roar. The next moment, accompanied by a beast-like roar, the madman revealed his enormous body. An evil aura surged within the barrier like an angry wave. And this time, the mark of a blood moon appeared between his eyebrows, as if it was cast from blood. Evil moon. The white-eyed wolf was bewildered. No, this is the source of all evil. The madman spoke. Even his voice was like a devil, making one's hair stand on end. Boom. The next moment, he raised his mountain-like arm and threw a punch at the 3 ultimate profundities. Accompanied by a loud explosion, Jiang Chen's ultimate profundities of darkness and light shattered on the spot. What? Jiang Chen's expression changed. The ultimate profundities enhanced by the god race mark were actually so weak in front of this person? No, I don't believe it. The next moment, an even more shocking scene appeared. The madman's fist exuded a shocking evil power, as he threw another punch at the galaxy formed by the ultimate profundities of space and time. The world buzzed. Blood dyed the earth red. Under everyone's gaze, the power of the madman's punch was actually able to shake the galaxy. Not only the people from the god race, but even the white-eyed wolf and the others were filled with disbelief when they saw this scene. What kind of power was this? One must know. After being enhanced by the god race mark, Jiang Chen's ultimate profundities of time was enough to suppress the strongest ultimate profundities of the same realm. But now, the power of the madman's punch was actually on par with it. What's going on? I remember half a year ago, after his transformation, he could barely shake an ordinary ultimate profundities enhanced by the god race mark. Everyone in the demon palace, including Elder Hua and the others, had a puzzled expression. Half a year ago, they had all witnessed the strength that the madman displayed with their own eyes. But today, half a year later, his strength had doubled again. How did he cultivate in seclusion for half a year? If he could even compete with the strongest ultimate profundities enhanced by the god race mark, then wouldn't he be able to crush the ultimate profundities that weren't enhanced by the god race mark? Shatter for me. The madman roared as he raised his other fist. It carried with it the power to destroy heaven and earth as it smashed towards the galaxy. The Xing River was vast, but the madman's current body was like an ancient giant, and was even more shocking. Boom. As the fist landed, the Xing River collapsed on the spot with a loud bang. The madman's fist was also split open as his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. His bones were clearly visible. No matter what, this godly power made everyone's scalp go numb. This was too heaven-defying. Using his own strength to shatter an ultimate profundities of time? And it was an ultimate profundities enhanced by the god race mark. Indeed, if it wasn't for the enhancement of the god race mark, the madman would have been able to crush it easily. This isn't the power of his physical body. Suddenly, a voice sounded. 3 figures had appeared in the sky above the demon palace at some point in time. They were the Feather Emperor, the Little Rabbit, and the Blood Ancestor. Greetings, lords. Elder Hua and the others hurriedly bowed. The Feather Emperor waved his hand and looked up at the madman with a trace of shock in his eyes. Was this the power of the source of all evil? How terrifying. Fire Dance landed beside the 3 and looked at the Feather Emperor suspiciously. You just said that this isn't the power of the madman's physical body? Yes. No matter what kind of living being he is, it's impossible for him to be so powerful. The Feather Emperor nodded. Then what kind of power is this? The white-eyed wolf also stepped out of the barrier and landed beside Fire Dance with a frown. The source of all evil. The Feather Emperor enunciated each word clearly. The source of all evil? The white-eyed wolf and Fire Dance looked at each other with confusion in their eyes. Elder Hua and the others were also puzzled. Inside the barrier, the god race group looked at the madman with their mouths agape. The power that the madman displayed had far exceeded their understanding. Jiangxing. Jiangchen came back to his senses and immediately roared. Boom. Jiangxing, who was in a daze below, immediately quivered. The power of 3 laws surged out as he landed beside Jiangchen. Obviously, the two were ready to join forces. They had no choice but to join forces because the madman's strength was too strong. We should have attacked together a long time ago. The madman smiled sinisterly as his eyes emitted a ruthless light. Boom. A destructive force emerged. In the sky, a huge eye appeared. It was the ultimate meaning of the law of destruction. Destruction, heavenly eye. What? How did this little madman master the ultimate meaning of the law of destruction? The white-eyed wolf and fire dance were stunned. Of course, they knew the madman's strength. Apart from the law of thunder and the law of slaughter, there was also the law of space-time inheritance that the divine king of primal chaos gave him. Moreover, they didn't remember receiving the law of destruction inheritance in the Sky Bell divine treasure. Could it be that this guy comprehended it himself? But that was impossible. How long had it been since he returned to the Sky Cloud realm? The Feather Emperor and the others looked at each other and murmured. It seems that he has integrated the inheritance of his previous life. Previous life? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Suddenly, he remembered that when the madman was laughing on the mountain peak, he seemed to have mentioned his previous life? Wait. Don't tell me that he is really the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. The white-eyed wolf looked at the Feather Emperor and the others in surprise. He is. The Blood Ancestor nodded. Damn. The white-eyed wolf was stunned and looked up at the madman. Fire Dance asked, so this law of destruction is the inheritance of his previous life? Yes. And now he should have recovered the memories of his previous life. The Feather Emperor sighed. Inside the enchantment, the aura of the law of destruction surged like angry waves. The madman directly activated the 4 ultimate meanings. But Jiangxing's strength wasn't weak either. The law of devour, the law of sword, and the law of metal were 3 ultimate meanings. Together with Jiangchen's 3 ultimate meanings, there were a total of 2 ultimate meanings of the strongest laws and 4 ultimate meanings of the ordinary laws. It could be said that, even if the madman had mastered the 4 ultimate meanings, he couldn't be compared to the 2. Moreover, at this moment, the 2 had already activated the power of the god race mark. No. Brother, go help him. The white-eyed wolf said in a deep voice. No need. The power of the source of all evil is not just that. It can also increase the power of the law of destruction. Chapter 39:17. It can't be. The white-eyed wolf looked at the madman in disbelief. As expected, the mark on the madman's forehead emitted rays of divine light that merged with the 4 ultimate intents. The aura of the 4 ultimate intents immediately soared. Fuck, how can there be such a freak? The white-eyed wolf cursed. Don't just talk about others. Aren't you a freak too? When the Demon Palace disciples heard the white-eyed wolf's cursing, they couldn't help but grumble inwardly. The madman is indeed powerful, but you aren't bad either. From a certain perspective, the ability to strip cultivation was even more freakish than the madman. Take the madman and the white-eyed wolf as a comparison. If the madman was facing the white-eyed wolf, and the white-eyed wolf used its innate ability to strip the madman of his cultivation, then no matter how strong the source of all evil was, the madman wouldn't be a match for the white-eyed wolf. Just as the god race genius said, the white-eyed wolf was the nemesis of all living beings in the world. Boom. Inside the barrier, the 10 ultimate intents clashed. Both ultimate intents were supported by a special power that was simply a scene of apocalypse. Even the barrier set up by the 11 sovereign weapons of the Fire Phoenix sword was distorting at this moment. However, after all, Jiangchen and Jiangxing were working together. As the saying goes, one fist can't beat 4 hands. The madman's 4 ultimate intents were shattered one after another. Jiangchen and Jiangxing's 6 ultimate intents, and 2 ordinary ultimate intents of law still remained. They charged at the madman with murderous intent. However, was the madman afraid? Of course not. Right now, his physical body was his strongest weapon. Boom. his flesh-lacerated fist punched out, and the two ultimate profundities of the ordinary laws were immediately dispersed. It could be said that, at this moment, any punch he threw out contained lethality that surpassed the strongest ultimate intents of laws. After shattering the two ordinary ultimate intents of laws, the madman raised his giant foot and stomped toward Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing. The source of all evil's power surged out. The two's expression changed. In a moment of desperation, he hurriedly threw out a punch. As geniuses of the god race, their physical bodies weren't weak either. They had already reached the heaven-defying supreme level. But compared to a madman, there was a huge difference. Even a dominator weapon wouldn't dare to clash with the madman. When the madman's foot landed, the two of them let out miserable screams as their bodies shattered. The two of them were terrified and quickly escaped with their shattered bodies. Rumble. When his foot landed on the ground, a 10,000 feet deep footprint was left behind. Looking at this scene, everyone could not help but feel their scalps go numb. If he was stepped on, wouldn't he be turned into a meat patty on the spot? Go. Jiang Chun turned around and looked at Madman in horror. Then he shouted at the god race. It was too terrifying. The power of each punch and kick was stronger than an ultimate profound. He was simply an invincible existence. Actually, the rest of the deity race had wanted to leave long ago. It was just that Jiang Chun and the other deity race cultivator did not say anything. Therefore, when they heard Jiang Chun's words, one of the young men immediately activated the momentary time and led a group of people to escape. However, the barrier set up by the dominator weapons such as the Fire Phoenix sword was still there. Remove the barrier immediately. Jiang Xing turned around and shouted at Huo Wu. Princess Huofeng frowned. Remove the barrier, Feather Emperor said. If it was just isolating a battlefield, the dominator weapons would not be considered interfering. But if they stopped these people from escaping, it would be interfering with the battle. Interfering with the battle was breaking the agreement. This agreement was something that Qin Feiyang had fought for with great difficulty. It was not going to be broken just like that. Okay. Huo Wu nodded and looked at the dominator weapons such as the Fire Phoenix sword. Immediately, the barrier dissipated. The group of people escaped without looking back. Madman's murderous aura surged. Without any hesitation, he activated the momentary time and chased after them. Don't chase. Feather Emperor hurriedly shouted. Without the help of the dominator weapons such as the Fire Phoenix sword, once the battle broke out again, innocent lives would be hurt. Madman raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Feather Emperor. He said coldly, "Are you ordering me?" At this moment, Madman was unprecedentedly unfamiliar. Even when he looked at the white-eyed wolf and Huo Wu, there was no emotion in his eyes. How would I dare to order you? Feather Emperor smiled bitterly. This was the Blood Demon King. Even when facing people like him and the Blood Ancestor, he would not show mercy. However, Madman did not buy it. His eyes flashed with killing intent. What's going on? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Even if Madman had recovered the memories of his previous life, he should not be so cold. After all, in order to protect the Sky Cloud realm, he was considered a partner with Feather Emperor and others. You don't understand the Blood Demon King. Although we fought together in the past, our relationship is not as good as you think. Feather Emperor sighed. Could it be that you were opponents in the past? The white-eyed wolf was bewildered. That's not the case. When the Blood Demon clan was in the Sky Cloud realm, they were very low-key. Whether it was the human clan, the dragons, the Feng people, or the Kirin clan, he did not pay much attention to them. So to speak, we did not have much interaction. Feather Emperor shook his head. That's good. The white-eyed wolf breathed a sigh of relief. If Blood Demon King and Feather Emperor were opponents in the past, now that Madman had recovered the memories of his previous life, he might be affected by them and become their opponents. Don't relax. Back then, the purple gold divine dragon of the divine kingdom led people to the underworld king's hell, causing the underworld king's hell to be plunged into misery and suffering. At that time, Blood Demon King witnessed this scene with his own eyes. So he hates the purple gold divine dragon very much. And now he has merged with the memories of his previous life. He might have resentment toward those who have the purple gold dragon blood. Feather Emperor looked at Madman worriedly. Those who have the purple gold divine dragon. Doesn't that include little Qinzi? The white-eyed wolf was bewildered. Yes. Feather Emperor nodded and sighed. In short, after recovering the memories of his previous life, Madman will definitely be affected. It depends on his perseverance, and whether he can overcome the negative emotions left behind by his previous life. The problem is so serious. The white-eyed wolf frowned. At this moment, a struggling look appeared in Madman's eyes again, as if he was in great pain. A moment later, it seemed to be getting better. His 10,000 feet tall body kept shrinking, returning to the appearance of an ordinary person. The mark between his eyebrows also disappeared. After the mark disappeared, his eyes gradually became clear. When he looked at the white-eyed wolf and Feather Emperor again, he no longer had the feeling of unfamiliarity like before. It seems that he can overcome it. Little Rabbit muttered. It's hard to say. After all, we don't have the purple gold dragon blood. Blood Ancestor shook his head. That's right. Only when facing Fei Yang can it be considered a true test for Madman. Feather Emperor nodded in agreement. Of course. They really hoped that even if Madman recovered the memories of his previous life, it wouldn't affect their previous relationship. Otherwise, everyone would feel very uncomfortable in the future. Little Madman, you're not good enough. You have such benefits, but you didn't share them with us. The white-eyed wolf walked to Madman's side and said angrily. This is the inheritance of my previous life. Why should I share it with you? Madman smiled proudly. At this moment, he was indeed not affected by the memories of his previous life. The inheritance of your previous life is so great? The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. It's good that you know it's great. You don't have to say it out loud. Madman bared his teeth. Shameless. The white-eyed wolf raised his middle finger in disdain. However, this familiar feeling was really good. It was the original taste. Suddenly, Madman and the white-eyed wolf turned their heads at the same time and looked at the crowd in the distance. Long Qin was standing in front of the crowd. Of course, they all recognized Long Qin. After all, they were already quite familiar with this woman in the ancient world. At the same time, seeing the two of them looking at her, Long Qin couldn't help but frown. At this moment, she was also a little unhappy in her heart, because like Qin Fei Yang, Madman and the white-eyed wolf were also people she hated. She thought that with her current strength, she had already surpassed these bastards. But she didn't expect that the methods displayed by Madman and the white-eyed wolf were stronger than the other. They were really enemies. No matter where she went, they were her biggest enemies. The white-eyed wolf looked at Long Qin mockingly and said, I heard that you performed well in the battle with the top 10 prodigies of the Divine Kingdom in the land of buried gods. It's okay. Long Qin responded faintly and turned to leave. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? We are old friends for many years. Don't you want to sit down and catch up? The white-eyed wolf hurriedly said. Not interested. Long Qin snorted coldly without looking back. Don't be afraid. We won't bully you. The white-eyed wolf smiled evilly. Long Qin suddenly turned to look at the white-eyed wolf. A terrifying dominator's aura erupted from her body and rushed toward the white-eyed wolf and Madman. What? The two suddenly changed their expressions. This dominator's aura. It seemed to be an intermediate dominator's divine weapon. And it wasn't the aura of the Sky God Sword. They really couldn't afford to offend the son and daughter of the Ice Dragon. Long Qin looked at the two with a smile and said, Although we have an agreement with the Divine Kingdom that we can't use Dominator's divine weapons, I don't think there is such an agreement between us. Ha! The white-eyed wolf laughed dryly. What was going on? Did intermediate Dominator's divine weapons not cost money? The siblings actually had one each. Madman frowned and looked at Long Qin with uncertain eyes. No matter how strong you siblings are, I want to see you leave the Een Demon Land in 3 days. Leave the Een Demon Land? Long Qin was taken aback. The white-eyed wolf also looked at Madman suspiciously. Why did he suddenly make such a request? The Een Demon Land was originally the territory of the Blood Demon tribe. You dragons have occupied it for so long. It's time to give it up. Madman said. Okay. 3 days later, I will wait for you at the dragon's nest. Longqin smiled coldly and turned to leave without looking back. He didn't take Madman's words to heart at all. Little Madman, are you serious? The siblings have intermediate dominators' divine weapons in their hands. No matter how strong your origin of all evil is, I'm afraid you won't be their opponent. The white-eyed wolf frowned. Then are we going to let them occupy the demon land like this? Madman stared at him angrily. Before he recovered his memories of his previous life, he didn't feel anything. But now, seeing the dragons occupying the demon land, he couldn't help but go crazy. This was the territory of his blood demon tribe. Why should he let the dragons occupy it? Chapter 39:18. The white-eyed wolf looked at Madman and suddenly laughed. We're brothers. No matter what you do, I'll support you. You're really something. 3 days later, we'll kill our way to the dragon's nest and let this pair of siblings have a taste of our strength. Even without Ice Dragon as a backer, we won't lose to them. Madman smiled domineeringly. Backer? The white-eyed wolf was stunned and immediately said with disdain, do we still need a backer? We're the best backers. Hearing the conversation between the two, Feather Emperor and the others rolled their eyes. But they were also very happy, because from Madman's current performance, the memories of his previous life didn't affect him as much as they imagined. Feather Emperor landed beside the two and looked at Madman. Let's find a place to talk. Okay. Madman nodded and turned to look at Elder Hua and the others, saying, if there's anything, immediately inform us. Okay. Elder Hua and the others nodded and smiled. Although they didn't know what happened to Madman, in their eyes, he was still the same young man. He was still a member of their demon palace. The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and a space-time passage appeared. Several people walked in one after another. Soon, the demon palace regained its peace. The onlookers also gradually dispersed. But the white-eyed wolf and Madman's actions today would inevitably shake the entire Sky Cloud realm, and even the Divine Kingdom. For example, at this moment, Western Continent, Rogue Cultivator Alliance. In a large hall, the Alliance Master and the others gathered together, and couldn't help but laugh when they heard the report from the spy. Especially the Hall of the Exalted Master. Madman was his disciple. How could he not be happy that Madman could achieve what he had today? Because he was also proud of himself. After being silent for so long, I finally heard news about them, and they became famous in one battle. The Alliance Master shook his head and sighed. Alliance Master, you can't say that. They didn't become famous in one battle because they have long been famous in the Sky Cloud realm. They are the return of the kings. The Hall of the Exalted Master hurriedly corrected him. The Alliance Master was stunned and nodded with a bitter smile. That's true. The Vice Alliance Master glanced at the Hall of Famers and kindly reminded him. I say, old man Chi, you should watch your mouth a little. You're just jealous. The Hall Master of the Hall of the Exalted sneered. Jealous? The Vice Alliance Master was slightly taken aback, and said disdainfully, it seems like you're the only one who has a disciple. Yes, you do indeed have a disciple. However, there is no movement from that disciple of yours at all. We do know him. We know that he is cultivating in seclusion. But others don't know. Maybe people are talking behind his back that he is afraid of the people of the Divine Kingdom, and doesn't dare to show his face. The Hall Master of the Hall of the Exalted laughed. Who dares to talk about this? The Vice Leader flew into a rage. Calm down, calm down. Old Chi was just saying. Do you really think he's serious? The Alliance Master had a helpless expression on his face. These two old men? How childish. Qin Feiyang and the madman were brothers who had gone through thick and thin together. What was there to compare? How are Zhuo Tianxing and the others? Xin Meng and his wife suddenly asked. They are fine. The vice leader nodded and asked suspiciously. Why are you suddenly asking about them? Are you stupid? Zhuo Tianxing is Zhuo Xiaoxian's daughter? Lu Xingyuan is Zhuo Xiaoxian's adopted daughter. Old Man Yu is also on good terms with Zhuo Xiaoxian. We have to take special care of these three people. Xin Meng and his wife said. Is there a need? We are all on the same side. We'll talk about it later. We have always taken good care of them. Why don't you go and take a look at them? They are living more leisurely than us now. I know a little about their lives. The vice leader shook his head. This was true. Zhuo Tianxing and the other two? They were considered to be in a high position in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The point was, even if they had great power, they didn't like to care about them. They either cultivated all day long, or gathered together to drink tea and chat. It was very pleasant. I agree with old Yi. They are all on the same side. What's there to take care of them for? If we do it now, if we really go and do something, it will seem too pretentious. The leader thought for a while and nodded. We also want to build a good relationship with the other children. The Shenmeng couple smiled embarrassedly. Yi Tian, Zhao Xiaojin and the Shenmeng couple's child, the fire dragon? They were all in the black tortoise world now. And back then, they even followed everyone to cultivate beside the little rabbit. It could be said that they had obtained a great fortune. Their relationship has reached this level. There is no need. I only hope that, as long as Yi Tian doesn't drag them down. The vice leader waved his hand. It is difficult not to drag them down. After all, the gap is obvious. However, we don't need to worry. Although their talents are not as good as Qin Feiyang and other monsters, they are not too bad. Moreover, they have already opened the door of potential. They will definitely achieve something in the future. The leader smiled faintly. That's right. It is too difficult to compare with people like Qin Feiyang and Long Chen. They just need to do their part well. Don't stop working hard. The vice leader and the Hall of Famers nodded one after another. The land of buried gods. The core area. Accompanied by the appearance of a space-time tunnel. A group of people walked out one after another. They were the Madman, the White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Dance, the Feather Emperor, the Blood Ancestor, and the Little Rabbit. The land of buried gods? The Feather Emperor and the others were stunned. They thought that the space-time tunnel opened by the White-Eyed Wolf would lead them to Skycloud Island. They didn't expect that it would lead them to the land of buried gods. To the land of buried gods. The White-Eyed Wolf's intention was quite obvious. He wanted to let the Madman and Qin Feiyang meet. The three immediately became worried. They hurriedly looked around, but they didn't find any traces of Qin Feiyang and Yun Xiang. Didn't they say that they would wait for the princess of the Divine Kingdom in the land of buried gods? Where were they? Why did they come here? The Madman also looked at the White-Eyed Wolf in confusion. He still didn't know that Qin Feiyang was in the land of buried gods. At this moment, the Black Tortoise Realm was floating beside them. The Black Tortoise Realm. Pei Dason had been monitoring the situation outside. When he saw the Madman appear, he immediately shouted, "Young master, look, it's the Madman." The Madman? Qin Feiyang immediately woke up from his seclusion. He raised his head and looked at the scene in the sky. A trace of joy appeared on his face. In the next moment, he appeared outside and looked at the Madman with a smile. "Senior brother, you're finally back. How was it? Did you find anything?" However, the moment the Madman saw Qin Feiyang appear, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of killing intent. What's going on? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The hearts of the Feather Emperor and the others were also in their throats. The White-Eyed Wolf and Fire Dance looked at each other and slowly approached the Madman. If the Madman attacked Qin Feiyang, they had to stop him immediately. The Madman was silent as he stared at Qin Feiyang. From his eyes, one could clearly see a trace of resentment and grief. He was grieving for those who died unjustly in the Nether King's hell. But at the same time, there was also a trace of struggle in his eyes. What's going on? Qin Feiyang looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and the others suspiciously. Why did the Madman's eyes look so strange? And in the Madman's heart he could clearly sense a trace of anger and killing intent. One had to know. With his friendship with the Madman, it was impossible for such a situation to happen. Sigh. The Feather Emperor sighed deeply and walked to Qin Feiyang. He looked at the Madman and said, "We all understand how you feel, but whether it's Qin Feiyang or the Princess of the Divine Kingdom, they're both innocent." "That's right. You hate the Divine Kingdom. We hate them too. But we have to be reasonable. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Whoever made the mistake should be punished. Moreover, you've been with Qin Feiyang since the ancient world. You should know what kind of person he is without us telling you. You shouldn't transfer your hatred for the purple gold divine dragon to him. The blood ancestor also spoke. Since he had to face these things sooner or later, he might as well resolve it today. What are you talking about? Looking at the Feather Emperor, the blood ancestor, and the madman, Qin Feiyang was even more puzzled. Actually, he's the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. Little Rabbit sighed. What? Qin Feiyang's expression stiffened. It's true? Little Rabbit said, and now he has already fused with the memories and inheritance of his previous life. Memories and inheritance of his previous life? In that case, you've been fusing with the memories and inheritance of your previous life during the months of evil. Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and asked. The madman was silent. The killing intent in his eyes didn't dissipate. The struggle in his eyes became more obvious. During this period, he has indeed been fusing with the memories and inheritance of his previous life. The Feather Emperor nodded. This is a good thing, but why have you all become like this? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. It's indeed a good thing, because now he has already grasped the four ultimate mysteries. However, there is also a problem. In his previous life, he led the Blood Demon race to the Nether King's hell to stop the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom. In that battle, he personally witnessed the suffering of the Nether King's hell, so before he died, he left a deep resentment in his heart. This resentment is contained in his memories. Now that he has fused with the memories of his previous life, he will naturally be bound by this resentment. The Feather Emperor sighed. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Shua. Suddenly, a blood shadow appeared. You are? Qin Feiyang, White-Eyed Wolf, and Fire Dance looked at the blood shadow in surprise. I'm the spirit of the Blood Demon Tower, the blood shadow said. The three nodded. Actually, when he was fusing with the memories and inheritance of his previous life, I warned him to think twice. But at that time he was very confident. Saying anything will definitely not affect your relationship. However, after he successfully fused with it, I discovered that his personality has begun to change. He is also aware of this, so he has been struggling with his thoughts. However, you can't blame him. It's just that the battle back then was too tragic. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to get rid of that shadow. The blood shadow sighed. Qin Feiyang asked, so now I, who have the purple gold dragon blood, have become the target of his hatred? That's right. The blood shadow nodded. Qin Feiyang frowned slightly. His gaze fell on Frenzy again, and he said disappointedly, Senior brother, it seems that the friendship we have formed after going through fire and water together over the years is not that indestructible. The blood shadow, the Feather Emperor, and the others immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. Were they going to fall out with him? Chapter 39:19. The White-Eyed Wolf also hurriedly said, Little Qinzi, don't be angry. You have to give him some time. That's right. If he really doesn't care about your friendship, he wouldn't have been struggling. Blood Shadow also hurriedly explained. Angry? Qin Feiyang paused for a moment and said telepathically, I'm not angry. I'm just deliberately provoking him. Deliberately provoking him? Blood Shadow was taken aback. That's right. The resentment of his previous life is already devouring his mind. If this continues, Senior Brother's consciousness will definitely be devoured by the resentment. Do you know what the consequences of this will be? Senior Brother's consciousness and memories will all disappear and be replaced by the resentment of his previous life. At that time, he will really be a stranger. The most important thing is, when the resentment dominates this body, he will become a ruthless killing machine. So at this time, we have to use strong medicine. Qin Feiyang said to himself. Hearing this, the Emperor of Feathers and the others were shocked. They really didn't think of this situation, because they had always thought that even if the lunatic merged with the memories of his previous life, the worst-case scenario would be a split personality. In other words, there would be two consciousnesses in one body. But now, after hearing what Qin Feiyang said, this was really possible. Because before the Blood Demon King died, The resentment in his heart was already comparable to the inner demons. Now that this resentment had merged with the lunatic, it would naturally gradually erode the lunatic's mind. Being eroded by such a strong resentment, even the lunatic's confidence would probably be difficult to resist. Once the lunatic's mind was assimilated and devoured by this resentment, the lunatic's memories and consciousness would naturally disappear. In this way, from now on, the person who occupied this body would not be the lunatic or the blood demon king, but the resentment of the blood demon king. The lunatic again. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the struggle on his face became even more obvious. At this moment, there was always a voice in his heart. Qin Feiyang was the descendant of the purple-gold divine dragon. He was a sinner and deserved to die. This voice was filled with madness and malevolence, constantly tempting the madman. It was as if it contained a magical power that caused his mind to almost collapse. But in the depths of the madman's heart, he had always maintained his friendship with Qin Feiyang. Although this friendship had started to become blurry due to the impact of the resentment, he had been trying hard to tell himself that he could not lose it. So, if you really care about our friendship, how can mere resentment affect your consciousness? I'm really disappointed. If it were me today, no matter how strong the resentment is, I would not waver in the slightest, because you are the brother that I, Qin Feiyang, have acknowledged. We will be brothers for life, and no one can change that. Qin Feiyang heaved a long sigh. It's not like that. I didn't. Madman held his head that was about to explode and roared hysterically. Feather Emperor and the others immediately rushed forward worriedly. But Qin Feiyang stopped them. He looked at the madman and continued. Do you still remember the scene when we met in the ancient world? I'm just a nobody who just entered the ancient world. I'm someone who's constantly being targeted by the Dragon Clan. Even I'm worried about my own situation. But you're not afraid at all. You've been taking care of me, protecting me. Even later, when I entered the Divine Kingdom and faced the dragons, you could have completely stayed out of it, but you did not do so. You fought with me, killed enemies side by side, and never abandoned me. From then on, I recognized you as my brother for life. You are also a very brave person. Even when facing the ice dragon and the small beast, you were not afraid. You are a strong person. Facing the death of your adoptive father, facing the unsolved mystery of your origin, you never fell, never gave up. You are also a man with responsibility. Whether it was in the ancient world or now facing the Divine Kingdom, you have never retreated. You have always stood at the forefront, protecting the world. You are so brave, so strong. Can't you defeat a resentment? The setbacks and difficulties we have experienced along the way can't be compared to a resentment? Senior brother, the friendship between us was built through countless life and death tribulations. We are each other's shoulders, each other's reliance. Our friendship can withstand the test of blood and fire. Senior brother, wake up. No matter what the future is, we have to accompany each other and walk down the path together. Qin Feiyang roared. His voice was like thunder, shaking all directions. Madman's mind suddenly rumbled. The memories of being attacked by resentment quickly emerged in his mind. Inner world. At this moment, Madman's consciousness stood opposite a blood shadow. This blood shadow was like a cloud of blood mist, filled with a violent aura. It was formed by the resentment of the blood demon king. Don't listen to him. What brother, what friendship, that is just a trick to deceive you. What he values is your strength. If you are a trash, he won't care about you at all. The resentment continued to tempt him. Madman shook his head and shouted, "Shut up for me. Don't be stubborn. If you don't believe me, you can try. When the benefits are in front of you, what will he do to you? You see, will he still treat you as a brother?" But before the resentment finished speaking, murderous intent suddenly erupted from Madman's eyes. He said gloomily, "You don't understand him at all. Even if I am a trash, he will not abandon me. As for the benefits, that is a joke. In the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, as long as I ask, he would rather not have it and immediately give it to me. Let me ask you, how many people in the world can do this? So don't bewitch me anymore, because it is already useless. A mere resentment wants to cause trouble. Go and destroy it for me." As Madman's voice fell, a powerful belief surged out and pounced on the resentment. You can't do this. I am the memory of your previous life, the resentment roared. So what if it's my previous life? If you provoke me, I will even kill myself. Madman smiled sinisterly. The power of belief instantly drowned out the resentment of Blood Demon King. No. With a mournful scream, the resentment dissipated. Although his inner world was turbulent, outside, Madman was lying on the ground, looking incomparably calm. Feather Emperor, Little Rabbit, Blood Ancestor, Fire Dance, and White-Eyed Wolf all looked at Madman in surprise. What was going on? Why did he suddenly become quiet? However, a faint smile could be seen in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Because he had the inner demons before, he knew how to solve this kind of problem. If nothing unexpected happened, Madman must be in his inner world right now, making an end to the resentment. In other words, his previous words had successfully awakened Madman's memories. Nothing will happen, right? Seeing Madman not moving for a long time, White-Eyed Wolf tilted his head and tentatively reached out his hand, waving it in front of Madman's eyes. What are you doing? Suddenly, the motionless Madman slapped away White-Eyed Wolf's hand. Huh. White-Eyed Wolf looked at Madman in astonishment. Madman slowly raised his head and glared at White-Eyed Wolf, then at Feather Emperor and the others. Finally, his gaze fell on Qin Feiyang. This gaze, Feather Emperor and the others sized up Madman. The current Madman's gaze no longer had that strange feeling from before. It was no different from the previous Madman. Let me formally welcome you back. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Who needs your welcome? Also, I have no interest in being your brother for life. Madman immediately rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang smiled. This was the lunatic that he was familiar with. Where's the resentment? Blood Demon Tower's artifact spirit asked. I destroyed it, Madman said casually. The artifact spirit was stunned. Feather Emperor and the others also looked at each other. Not only did they succeed in awakening Madman, but they also destroyed the resentment. This was equivalent to completely eliminating this hidden danger. This was truly something worth celebrating. White-Eyed Wolf asked, Then do you still have the memories of Blood Demon King? Aren't you asking nonsense? All I did was erase that resentment. I didn't erase my memories. Madman rolled his eyes. In other words, the memories are still there? Then will you have a split personality in the future? White-Eyed Wolf was curious. You want me to have a split personality, right? Madman stared at him fiercely and shook his head. What's left now is just a simple memory. It won't have any effect. That's good. White-Eyed Wolf bared his teeth. Now that you mention it, the resentment left behind by the previous life is truly terrifying. Back then, when I was still fusing with the memories and inheritance, this resentment had already begun to devour my consciousness. But I had no choice. I wanted the inheritance left behind by my previous life too much, so I let it devour it. I wanted to wait until the fusion was complete before I slowly settled the score with it. But I didn't expect that by the time the fusion was complete, it had already devoured more than half of my consciousness. If I hadn't been steadfast in my heart, I'm afraid I would have already become a puppet. Madman shook his head. Hearing this, Feather Emperor and the others couldn't help but feel a lingering fear in their hearts. Fortunately, White-Eyed Wolf directly brought Madman to Qin Feiyang. Fortunately, Qin Feiyang saw through it and immediately awakened Madman. Otherwise, Madman's consciousness would definitely be gone after a period of time. At that time, even if a deity descended to the mortal world, it would be useless. Let's go to the Black Tortoise world and talk slowly. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people immediately appeared in the tea garden. Qin Feiyang brewed tea while looking at White-Eyed Wolf and Fire Dance, and asked suspiciously, When did the two of you run out? I actually didn't know. Didn't we hear that little Madman had returned? So, we went to the demonic palace to take a look. You didn't know because we went directly to the Fire Lotus. But speaking of which, little Madman, what's the situation with the source of all evil? White-Eyed Wolf looked at Madman suspiciously. The source of all evil? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You didn't see it with your own eyes. The current madman's strength can be called monstrous. After transforming, he directly suppressed the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law. White-eyed wolf said excitedly. What? Suppressed the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law. Chapter 39:20. The ultimate profundity of an ultimate law was comparable to a sovereign weapon. Suppressing the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law was equivalent to suppressing a sovereign weapon, right? Apart from the ultimate profundity of the life and death law, he had never heard of any other method that could do it. The root of all evil, it's a long story. Feather Emperor shook his head and smiled. Then tell me the main point. The white-eyed wolf was somewhat impatient. Feather Emperor took a sip of tea and said, the root of all evil is the source of all evil in the world. Legend has it that as long as one grasps the root of all evil, they will be able to control the power of all evil, and become a god that can control evil. In my previous life, the Blood Demon King had already found the root of all evil, but unfortunately he didn't succeed in fusing with it. Didn't succeed in fusing with it? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Yes. If the Blood Demon King had succeeded in fusing with the root of all evil back then, he wouldn't have been defeated by that purple-gold divine dragon. Feather Emperor nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, in that case, senior brother Fengzi has already succeeded in fusing with it? You will have to ask him. Feather Emperor looked at Fengzi. Qin Feiyang and the others also looked at Fengzi. I succeeded. I originally thought that it would be very difficult. After all, I didn't succeed in fusing with it in my previous life. But I didn't expect that after just half a year of seclusion, I would be able to fuse with the root of all evil. It seems that I am indeed more outstanding in this life than in my previous life. Fengzi smiled proudly. Shameless. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain. What does the root of all evil look like? Fire Dance asked curiously. You have all seen it before. Fengzi said. Seen it before? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Yes. Fengzi nodded and chuckled. The evil moon and evil sun are actually formed by the root of all evil. But now they have already fused with my bloodline power. You will no longer be able to see them. No, you can still see the imprint. After saying that, an imprint appeared on Fengzi's forehead. It was similar to the evil moon. With the appearance of this imprint, a terrifying power of all evil swept out in all directions like a tide. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at the mark in a daze. He didn't expect the evil moon and evil sun to have such a background. I've named this seal the seal of all evil. Now, I can freely control the power of the root of all evil. Low-level dominator weapons are no longer a match for me. How is it? Are you jealous? The madman looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf with a smug expression. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and asked, then what was the bead you saw in the moon of evil? That's called the Blood Demon Pearl. There are two in total. One is in the evil moon, and the other is in the evil sun. The madman waved his hand and two blood-red beads appeared. They also gave off a shocking evil power. The Blood Demon Orb and the Blood Demon Tower are one. Only when the Blood Demon Orb and the Blood Demon Tower are one can the Blood Demon Tower return to its peak state. The madman then turned to the Feather Emperor and the other two and said, where are Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang? My Blood Demon Tower is still with them. Cough cough. The Feather Emperor coughed and said, when the time comes, they will naturally appear. As for the Blood Demon Tower, don't worry, it won't be lost. Why are you keeping us in suspense? The madman looked at the three suspiciously. Qin Feiyang also looked at the three in confusion. Then he looked at Madman and asked, is the Blood Demon Tower a dominator weapon? Of course it is. The madman smiled proudly. Then didn't you make a fortune? Not only did you obtain the inheritance of your previous life, but you also successfully merged with the root of all evil and obtained the dominator weapon from your previous life. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Don't be envious. This is something you can't get. The madman took out a jar of black tortoise divine brew and drank it proudly. What the hell? The white-eyed wolf was displeased. Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-eyed wolf and smiled bitterly. You have to admit, these things are really something you can't get from being envious. Fire Dance asked, is the root of all evil powerful, Or is it the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death? Ah. The Feather Emperor and the other two couldn't answer this question. This was because they had seen the power of the root of all things with their own eyes. It had indeed surpassed the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death. Although there were countless inheritances of the law of life and death, no one had seen it with their own eyes. Naturally, they couldn't judge its power. Although the root of all evil isn't a law of life and death, it can be considered an ultimate power in the world. As for the law of life and death, it is also an ultimate power. Probably. I'm just saying it's probably the case. The blood ancestor thought for a moment and speculated. I don't think so. It's very simple. Let's first look at the speed of the little madman fusing with the root of all evil. Then look at the speed of little Qinzi comprehending the ultimate meaning. In terms of difficulty, the root of all evil isn't as powerful as the law of life and death, right? The white-eyed wolf was disdainful. How can this kind of thing be measured by speed? The Feather Emperor was speechless. In terms of speed, the Blood Demon King had spent his entire life fusing with the root of all evil and still hadn't succeeded. This was probably even more difficult than Qin Feiyang comprehending the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death. Ignore him. He's just feeling unbalanced. The madman shook his head at the Feather Emperor. Who's feeling unbalanced? Let's just talk about it. The white-eyed wolf coldly snorted. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something. He looked at the madman and frowned. You're back. You fused with the root of all evil and brought back these two blood demon pearls. What about the blood demon race? One had to know. Whether it was the blood demon race or the creatures of hell, they all needed the power of evil to survive. Don't worry, hell is no longer the same as before. The madman shook his head. Different? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. In fact, whether it's the blood demon race or other creatures, the imprints on their bodies are all caused by the root of all evil. And now, I have already controlled the power of the root of all evil. I can remove the imprints on their bodies at any time. The madman said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. It was really as he and the fire python had analyzed. The imprints on the creatures of hell had nothing to do with the rules of hell itself. He asked, then the imprints on their bodies haven't been removed yet, right? Not yet. However, there is still a lot of evil power left in hell, enough for them to survive for a few decades. When I drive the dragons out of the Een demon land, I'll go and bring them back. The madman laughed. You want to make a move on the dragons? Qin Feiyang frowned. The white-eyed wolf said indifferently. He has already said that Long Chen and Long Qin are to take the dragons out of the Een demon land within 3 days. Otherwise, he will directly kill his way to the dragon's lair. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, but Long Chen isn't in the dragon's lair right now. I know. He went to Great Qin with the princess of the Divine Kingdom. The madman nodded. They really went to Great Qin? Qin Feiyang and the Feather Emperor looked at each other. Don't you know? This time, it was the madman who was stunned. He thought that Long Chen and the princess of the Divine Kingdom went to Great Qin with the consent of Qin Feiyang and the others in advance. Therefore, he didn't mention this matter in the half a year after returning to the Sky Cloud realm. I don't know, but I've already guessed it. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and frowned. The Feather Emperor sighed and said, it seems that sister-in-law really plans to return to the Divine Kingdom. Before she leaves, she wants to visit the descendants of the Qin clan. Return to the Divine Kingdom? What's going on? The madman's face was full of surprise. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the matter of the princess of the Divine Kingdom giving the 3 inheritances to Yun Xiang, as well as their inner guesses. What? Yun Xiang might be the reincarnation of the human emperor. The madman was stunned. From everything the old ancestor has done, there is indeed such a possibility. Qin Feiyang nodded. Haha. The madman was immediately amused. He looked at Qin Feiyang mockingly and said, if that's the case, how are you going to face Yun Xiang in the future? That's what it is. How can I escape from it? Qin Feiyang was helpless. He pondered for a while and said, but to be honest, I really hope that Yun Xiang is the reincarnation of the human emperor. Because at least it proves that the human emperor is still alive. That's true. Even if the reincarnation of the human emperor is a stranger we don't know, it's still better than being dead. The madman nodded. With the memories of his previous life, he knew what the human emperor had done for the Sky Cloud realm. So he didn't want the human emperor to die. Let's talk about this later. Now that the madman's situation has been resolved, we will return to the Sky Cloud Island first. The Feather Emperor stood up and smiled. Then he looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "Come with us." Ah. The white-eyed wolf looked up at the Feather Emperor. What did he mean? There are benefits. The Feather Emperor smiled. What benefits? Upon hearing the words benefits, the white-eyed wolf's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang and Huo Wu were also curious. However, the madman looked at the white-eyed wolf and the Feather Emperor thoughtfully. Keep it a secret first. The Feather Emperor smiled mysteriously. The white-eyed wolf was speechless. He said angrily, "If you don't tell me clearly, I won't go." You really won't go? Don't regret it. This is a great fortune, Lin Feng said with a smile. The Feather Emperor smiled meaningfully. The blood ancestor and the little rabbit stood at the side with an unfathomable look. The white-eyed wolf looked at the three and couldn't resist the temptation. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go. I don't believe that you will sell me out." "Then why don't we go and take a look?" The madman asked tentatively. "You don't have to go." The Feather Emperor chuckled. He didn't even bother to hide his rejection. "I can't go either?" Huo Wu looked at the Feather Emperor with a pleading look. "No." The Feather Emperor shook his head. "What's the point of doing this?" Qin Feiyang's face darkened. They were hiding everything from them. Their treatment was worse than that of outsiders. "You stay here and wait for your ancestor. Don't wait until she returns to the Divine Kingdom. You won't be able to stop her in time." The little rabbit grinned. Scram, scram. Qin Feiyang waved his hand impatiently and sent the four out. The weapon spirit looked at the madman and said, "Then it's fine. I'll leave first." "Oi." The madman nodded. When the weapon spirit entered one of the blood demon pearls, the madman waved his hand and put away the two pearls. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and looked at Huo Wu. "Do you know about the Feng people's current situation?" "Yes. Father already told me." Huo Wu nodded. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang asked. "It depends on father." Huo Wu pondered for a moment and sighed. Qin Feiyang nodded and thought for a moment. He looked at Huo Wu and smiled. "No matter what decision you make, we will stand behind you." "Thank you." Huo Wu smiled gratefully. "All right. Do as you wish." After saying that, Qin Feiyang put down his teacup, turned around, and stepped into the air. "Instead of waiting here, why don't you go to the Great Qin Empire and look for the Divine Kingdom's princess?" The madman looked at Qin Feiyang's back and said, "After all, the Feather Emperor's badge was still in his hands. He could return to the Great Qin Empire at any time." Qin Feiyang stopped and pondered for a moment before shaking his head. "Originally, it was just a guess. I did plan to go back to the Great Qin Empire to confirm it. But now, since it's confirmed that she went to the Great Qin Empire, there's no need. Moreover, she probably doesn't want anyone to disturb her now." After saying that, Qin Feiyang landed behind Pei Dason and sat cross-legged in the air, continuing to comprehend the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death. Chapter 39:21. Feng people. During this period of time, the Feng people had kept a low profile. There was nothing they could do. Now they no longer had the qualifications to be high profile. Feng Ho had fallen, and the various sovereign divine weapons had left with her. The strongest people in the clan were those reclusive old antiques. But these reclusive old antiques had only grasped the ultimate meaning of an ordinary law. In front of the geniuses of the Divine Kingdom, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. In the past, the Feng people were so awe-inspiring. Any one of them would be worshipped from all directions. But now, they had fallen to the point where no one cared about them. The dragons, the Feng people, and the Kirin clan all had the same experience. But now their situation was completely different. Let's talk about the dragons first. Although the Dragon King had fallen, Long Chun and Long Qin were stronger. Under the leadership of these siblings, The dragon's status in the Sky Cloud realm had increased. Let's talk about the Kirin clan. Although Qi Xiaoyan's strength wasn't as strong as Long Chun and Long Qin, he was still in existence who had grasped the ultimate meaning of the strongest law. Most importantly, he had a sovereign divine weapon. Just this point alone wasn't something the down-and-out Feng people could compare to. Now the Feng people had undoubtedly become the weakest in the Sky Cloud realm. Their clansmen had also truly experienced what it meant to be weak and hopeless. At this time, Hua Dahong and a group of reclusive old antiques were sitting in a great hall with a gloomy face. The atmosphere in the hall was particularly heavy. We can't go on like this. Suddenly, an old woman with white hair on her temples spoke. That's right. Another old man with white hair nodded in agreement and said in a deep voice, now we Feng people don't even have a sovereign divine weapon. Not to mention the experts of the divine kingdom. Even in the Sky Cloud realm, any force can bully us at will. Who doesn't know about this, but what can we do? Another old man spoke. The great hall fell into silence again. After a long time, the old man with white hair sighed and looked at the sky outside the door. He said softly, now we can only ask Huo Wenchang and his daughter to come back and preside over the situation. What? Invite the father and daughter back? Isn't this inviting a wolf into the house? I don't agree. As soon as this was said, someone immediately stood up to oppose it. Those who objected were basically all members of the Ice Phoenix clan. This was because the reason Huo Wenchang and Feng Ho had left the Feng people was because Feng Ho had given the Frost Sparrow sword to Bing Changtian and his daughter. Furthermore, Bing Changtian was killed right away. Bing Renning had also been taken away by Qin Feiyang. It was unknown whether she was still alive or not. Therefore, no matter what, they were unwilling to see Huo Wenchang and Huo Wu return to the Feng people, because they were afraid of being suppressed. Feng Ho was taking care of the Ice Phoenix race in the past. But now, Feng Ho had already fallen. Once Huo Wenchang and Feng Ho returned, with Huo Wenchang's strength, she would definitely replace Feng Ho's position. When it was time, if Fire Dance wanted to suppress them, they wouldn't be able to retaliate. In the future, the Ice Phoenix race wouldn't even have the slightest say in Feng people. Lead the wolf into the house. This is really a big joke. They are originally members of the Feng people. How can you say that they are leading the wolf into the house? Moreover, if Bing Changtian hadn't interfered and sowed discord, would they have left the Feng people? The old woman with white hair said angrily. Anyway, since they have chosen to leave, they can forget about coming back in the future. I believe that our people won't accept them again. The old antique of the Ice Phoenix race snorted. Haha. The old woman with white hair laughed loudly. What are you laughing at? The old antique of the Ice Phoenix race raised his eyebrows. I'm laughing at your naivety. Ridiculous. Do you really think that Huo Wenchang and the others are willing to come back to the Feng people now? The current Qin Feiyang has grasped countless miniature versions of the laws. Furthermore, he possesses abilities that no one can compare to. Over the years, this father and daughter pair have lived extremely comfortable lives by Qin Feiyang's side. Look at the golden-winged Wolf King. Back in the demonic palace, even the God Clan woman who mastered two ultimate profundities of the strongest laws was no match for him. Look at Madman Mo. He suppressed the two prodigies of the God Clan by himself. Let me ask you, who among the Feng people can do that now? The current Feng people are not even 1/10,000th of the human race, let alone the dragons and the Kirins. I really don't know what you have to be proud of. Please understand the situation. Huo Wenchang and his daughter don't need us now. We need them. The old woman with white hair was furious. What time was it now? How could they still be so self-righteous? With such people around, the Feng people wouldn't be tolerated if they didn't perish. Everyone fell silent. Humph. Don't just talk about the Ice Phoenix race. When Feng Ho took Fire Dance's ultimate profundity inheritance, I didn't see anyone from the Fire Phoenix race stand up for her. Even a certain grandfather of mine has the attitude of placing righteousness before family. The old antique of the Ice Phoenix race sneered. What do you mean? Huo Dahong raised his eyebrows. Nothing. I just think it's ridiculous. Back then, all of you were so righteous that you couldn't wait to kill that traitor with your own hands. Now the phone people are in trouble and all of you are trying to shirk responsibility. Do you really think the Ice Phoenix race is easy to bully? Let me tell you, even a rabbit bites when it's cornered. At most, we'll fight to the death. The old antiques of the Ice Phoenix race sneered. The old antiques of the Fire Phoenix race couldn't help but turn gloomy when they heard these words. Hua Dahong especially clenched his fists, his eyes filled with murderous intent. The old woman with white hair sighed and looked at everyone. Anyway, I'll leave the ugly words here first. If we don't ask the father and daughter to come back, the phone people will be finished sooner or later. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. With that, she got up and strode away. At the same time, in the depths of a mountain in the eastern continent, a group of people gathered here, each of them in an extremely wretched state. The people in the lead were the two prodigies of the God clan, Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing. How many prodigies are there in the Sky Cloud realm? Why is one more terrifying than the other? Both of them were extremely angry. They originally thought that the only prodigies in the Sky Cloud realm were Li Feng, Yin Xiang, Long Chun and Long Qin. But they didn't expect. In the end, two more prodigies jumped out. One had the ability to deprive cultivation, and the other had the ability to transform. Every punch and kick had the power to surpass a sovereign weapon. They were simply ridiculously strong. What should we do now? The other prodigies of the God clan looked at Jiang Chun and Jiang Xing in a daze. The two pondered for a moment and sighed. What else can we do? We can only lie low and wait for the monarch's order. Should we inform the people in the southern continent, western continent, and northern continent? Someone asked. Definitely. Tell them to keep a low profile. Especially in the Sky Cloud realm. Don't kill the innocent. According to my observation in the past 6 months, as long as we don't kill the innocent in the Sky Cloud realm, Long Chen and the others won't come out. Jiang Chen's eyes flickered, revealing a sense of competence. 3 days later. Dragon Nest. A black-clothed youth suddenly descended in front of the barrier. It was Madman. Looking at the barrier in front of him, a cold light flashed in Madman's eyes. The barrier was there, which meant that the dragons hadn't left the Yin Demon Land. Longqin might not have taken his words to heart at all. This is not a place where you dragons should come, Madman whispered. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. The barrier began to tremble violently. What's the situation? This move immediately alarmed the dragons. Everyone ran out and looked up at the barrier. Could it be that the prodigies of the Divine Kingdom had come to kill them? Because except for the Divine Kingdom, no one in the Sky Cloud realm seemed to have the guts to come to the dragons to make trouble. After all now, the ones guarding the dragons were the Long Chun siblings. Damn Madman, you dare to kill us. At the same moment, accompanied by an angry shout, Longqin walked out of a hall. Damn Madman. Could it be Madman Mo? He really wants to drive us out of the Yin Demon Land. Hearing Longqin's shout, the people of the dragons suddenly turned pale with fright. They had already heard the harsh words that Madman said to Longqin in the Demon Palace. It turned out that in their opinion it was just a joke. Because no matter how strong Madman was, it was impossible for him to defeat an intermediate-level Dominator divine weapon. But they didn't expect that today, 3 days later, it really came as scheduled. Could it be that Madman's strength was so strong that he wasn't even afraid of an intermediate-level Dominator divine weapon? I'll give you 10 breaths of time to leave the Yin Demon Land. Madman opened his mouth, his voice was like a bell, spreading throughout the entire dragon nest. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Who does he think he is? This is the land of us dragons. You came to occupy our land and still act so arrogantly. How preposterous. Everyone in the dragon clan was furious. Bastard, are you done yet? Longqin flashed in front of the barrier and stared at Madman standing outside with a cold glint in his eyes. Don't ignore this father's words. Once the barrier of the heavenly god sword is broken, the Yin demon power outside will instantly enter the dragon nest. At that time, the entire dragon nest will be destroyed. Madman sneered. You're really a madman. Longqin's face was ashen. Now, 3 breaths have passed. Instead of wasting words with this father here, why don't you take the dragons and scram? Madman laughed. You're going too far. Long Qin's eyes turned cold as he stepped out of the barrier. The death law, cause and effect law, and time law, the three ultimate intents, instantly appeared and charged at Madman with the power to destroy the world. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know what's good for you. Madman sneered, and as a fierce aura erupted, he instantly turned into a 10,000-foot-tall giant. Between his eyebrows, the 10,000 evil seal appeared and blood-red light dyed the sky. And in the Een Demon Land for Madman, it was like adding wings to a tiger, because he could absorb the Een Demon power here. In other words, all the Een Demon power could become the source of his power. He punched out, and the power of all evil surged, containing the power to destroy the world. Long Qin's three ultimate intents were like dead wood, shattering one after another. This was the terrifying power of all evil, easily crushing the ultimate intents of the strongest law. So strong. What kind of method is this? In the distance, the dragons who came to watch couldn't help but feel shocked when they saw this scene. Chapter 39:22. The ultimate power of the strongest law was already considered the pinnacle of power in the world. But at this moment, the ultimate power of the three strongest laws couldn't even compare to the madman's punch. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, who would dare to believe it? Not to mention them, even Long Qin 3 days ago. She had already seen it with her own eyes in the demonic palace, but at this moment, she couldn't help but be shocked. 6 breaths have passed. The madman spoke. His cold tone was like a god of death pronouncing the death sentence of a living being. If you want us to leave the dragon nest, you have to have the ability to do so. Long Qin was furious. A terrifying ruler's aura rolled out, shaking the world. The barrier set up by the heavenly god sword was also crazily twisting. 8 breaths, only 2 breaths left. But the madman's expression didn't change. It was just a mid-level ruler weapon. What was there to be arrogant about? I won't leave. Long Qin was originally a proud person. How could he tolerate the arrogant attitude of the madman? Accompanied by a loud clang, a milky white thin sword appeared in front of her. This sword was 3 feet long, and as thin as a cicada's wing, emitting a sacred light. As the divine light surged, 2 pure white wings appeared on the left and right sides of the thin sword. They were several feet long, like 2 angel wings that slowly flapped. One last breath. The madman looked at the thin sword as he spoke. This thin sword was indeed a mid-level ruler weapon. However, since he dared to come to the dragon nest, he was naturally fully prepared. Bastard, I'll kill you. Long Qin roared, grabbed the thin sword, and slashed at the madman. The sharp edge tore through the sky. Humph! The madman immediately snorted. Because his body was too large, a cold snort was as deafening as thunder. In the next moment, waves of ruler's aura appeared. 11 ruler weapons instantly rushed out of his body. They were the Sword of Death, Heavenly Star Divine Sword, Ice Phoenix Sword, Golden Dragon Spear, White Dragon Sword, Black Dragon Mirror, Edgeless Heavy Sword, Golden Sun Divine Sword, Silver Moon Divine Sword, All Creation Cauldron and Void Mirror. Although Qin Feiyang didn't come, the arrival of these ruler weapons undoubtedly represented his position. No matter what madman did, he would support him unconditionally. The 11 sovereign divine weapons instantly came to life. Divine might surged in all directions as they collided with the thin sword. Puff! Long Qin's body shook and he spat out a mouthful of blood. In the meantime, with a jerk of his arm, the thin sword in his hand flew out. There was an upper limit to the number of intermediate dominator weapons. The upper limit was 10 low-level dominator weapons. But at this moment, the madman had brought a total of 11 sovereign weapons. This had already exceeded the upper limit. He had brought these dominator weapons to deal with Long Qin's intermediate dominator weapon. It's time. The madman chuckled and looked up at the barrier. Clang. The 11 sovereign divine weapons immediately turned into bolts of light that blasted toward the distorting barrier. Stop. You can't do that. This is the land of the dragons. Everyone in the dragon clan could not help but roar anxiously. Wrong. This is not the land of you dragons but the land of the blood demons. You are just a turtle dove occupying a magpie's nest. A cold light flashed in the madman's eyes. occupying the land of the blood demons and speaking so eloquently, it was truly infuriating. But at this moment, a bolt of light broke through the sky and blasted in front of the barrier like lightning, blocking the 11 sovereign divine weapons. It was Long Chen's heavenly god sword. But even the heavenly god sword couldn't compete with 11 sovereign divine weapons. Seeing that the heavenly god sword was about to be blasted away, Long Chen grabbed the thin sword and rushed to the side of the heavenly god sword. He slashed with the thin sword in his hand. The two intermediate dominator divine weapons naturally couldn't be compared. Boom! The death god sword and the other 11 sovereign divine weapons were blasted away and shattered. Long Chen. The madman's eyes were like torches as he scanned the surroundings. Since the heavenly god sword had appeared, Long Chen must have returned. Brother Emo, why are you so angry? With a faint laugh, Long Chen descended from the sky and landed beside Long Chen. Brother. Long Chen was overjoyed and immediately complained to Long Chen. Brother, this bastard is too much. He actually wants to chase us out of the dragon's nest. I didn't want to, but he still wanted to force us out. Chase us out of the dragon's nest? Long Chen was slightly taken aback. He looked up at the madman and asked suspiciously, Brother Emo, why are you doing this? Because this is the land of the blood demons. The madman said. Blood demons? Long Chen murmured. His eyes flashed and he said with a smile, Brother Emo, let's talk in private? Okay. The madman nodded. His body quickly shrank. The 11 sovereign divine weapons also returned to the madman's body. Opposite. Long Chen also put away the heavenly god sword and looked at Long Chen helplessly. You're a girl. Don't fight and kill all day. Who will dare to marry you in the future? He provoked me first. Why are you blaming me? Let's talk about it later. With this lady's identity and strength, is there a need to worry about no one wanting me? Long Chen had a look of displeasure. Don't be narcissistic. Long Chen rolled his eyes and walked in front of the madman. He transmitted his voice. I also heard from the Dragon King that the Een Demon Land was once the land of the blood demons. But what does this have to do with you? When you came back, didn't you find that the Nether King's hell was different from before? The madman asked. Yes. I also thought that this might have something to do with you. So before in the Nether King's hell, I asked the fire python about your situation, but it didn't seem to know the specific situation. Of course. It's also possible that it didn't tell me the truth. Long Chen smiled. Of course the fire python knew. Because when the madman came out of seclusion, he had already told him everything. However, the fire python had always been wary of Long Chen. Although Long Chen was the son of the ice dragon, for the fire python, he was not trustworthy. The madman pondered for a while and nodded. Okay, Laozi will tell you. After listening, I hope you can take the initiative to take the dragons and leave the Een Demon Land. Following that, the madman briefly explained the matter of him being the reincarnation of the Blood Demon King. What are they mumbling about? Long Chen looked at the two whispering people and couldn't help but frown. A moment later, Long Chen nodded his head in realization. So that's how it is. I was wondering how you could absorb the power of evil and the power of the Een demons, and also have the ability to transform into a blood demon race. So you are his reincarnation, so you have already recovered the memories of your previous life? Yes. The madman nodded. Long Chen's eyes flashed as he asked curiously. Then between you and Qin Feiyang, do you want to say that we haven't fallen out? You should be eager for us to fall out. The madman looked at him teasingly. Cough cough. Long Chen coughed dryly and said unhappily. Don't think of me as such a despicable person, okay? I am concerned about you. I thank you for your concern. But you don't need to worry about these things. We are very good. The madman despised. That's good. Long Chen smiled embarrassedly, looking quite embarrassed. Tell me, are you moving or not? The madman asked. This, Long Chen rubbed his forehead and asked. Then tell me, where can I move to now? That I don't care. In any case, you have to vacate this Een Demon Land. Later, I will go to hell and bring all the blood demons to the Sky Cloud realm. The madman said indifferently. Long Chen's hands that were rubbing his forehead couldn't help but increase the strength of his hands. What a headache. But suddenly, He realized that he seemed to have overlooked something. He looked up at the madman, his eyes flickering. What? The madman raised his eyebrows. Long Chen asked. The passage to the Sky Cloud Realm has not been repaired yet. How did you return to the Sky Cloud Realm half a year ago? Does this have anything to do with you? The madman looked at him with a smile. Okay, pretend I didn't ask. Long Chen waved his hand. But in his heart, he was wondering if the madman also had a badge in his hand. Don't be long-winded. Hurry up and decide. Don't think that I am afraid of you just because you have 2 intermediate Dominator divine weapons. The madman sneered. The Dominator divine weapons in Qin Feiyang's hands were not the same as the 11 in front of him. What are you in a hurry for? I have to think of a place to stay first. Long Chen looked at the madman helplessly and lowered his head to ponder. Suddenly, the madman's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "Why don't you go to the phoenix nest?" What? Long Chen looked at the madman in astonishment. Those old farts in the phoenix nest, aren't they all very arrogant? I can take the opportunity to teach them a lesson. The madman's face was full of a sinister smile. Don't think about using me. I have no enmity with them. Why should I deal with them? Long Chen's face was dark. This guy really didn't let go of any opportunity to use him. No enmity. Do you believe that yourself? That Feng Ho, who was the one who killed her? Do you need me to remind you? The madman sneered. The corner of Long Chen's mouth twitched as he looked at the sky and sighed. It's really a slip that brings everlasting sorrow. He had accidentally boarded the pirate ship of these people. There's nothing to hesitate about. The phoenix nest is courting death. If you do this, not only will no one say anything about you, they will even praise you for getting rid of evil for the people. The madman continued to encourage him. I really admire you. Long Chen was speechless and said with a dark face. Then when the time comes, if the phone people go to fire dance for help, don't make me move out of the phone people. If that's the case, then I will really fall out with you. Don't worry. We are not the kind of people who will burn the bridge after crossing it. The madman bared his teeth. Come on. Long Chen rolled his eyes at him and turned to Long Qin with a smile. Qin, go to the phoenix nest. Go to the phoenix nest? Long Qin was taken aback. Long Chen said, tell them that the dragons have taken a fancy to their territory. They have 3 days to move out of the heavy region. What? Do we really have to move out? Long Qin frowned immediately. Long Chen nodded. But, Long Qin still wanted to say something, but Long Chen waved his hand. Be obedient. Seeing Long Chen's firm attitude, Long Qin didn't dare to say anything. He glared at the madman and turned to leave. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.